Welcome to a preservation guide for Season 2 of Midnight. Down below is the table of contents in case you know what you're looking for. And if you don't know what you're looking for and you're a beginner, you're in the right place. I'm going to start with a tutorial for beginners where I hold your paw, I give you a talent import string, and you can kind of play alongside me as I show you all of the basic spells and how it works into a basic beginner's rotation. After that, things will get more complicated and advanced as we go through the talents, the rest of the moves, and even more advanced things like positioning and raiding and all that good stuff. This is mostly a dungeon and delving guide on how to play Prez. Just note that if you do want to play Prez and Raid, you're in the right spot, as Prez and Raid is just a scaled up version of what you do in dungeons, and I'll go over that relative theory later in the video. Just as a quick disclaimer, Prez is looking strong as of recording this video. I'm in the PTR, I'm recording before the patch even comes out, and thus, if things get nerfed and Prez is no longer meta, I still want this guide to be relevant. So I'm going to say a whole lot of, this is looking stronger as of recording this video, and just know us YouTubers can't edit these videos and post, so I hope that you'll still learn holistically how Prez works, and whether one build is stronger than the other, you'll be able to come back to this video and learn whatever you need to in case things change on you. Also, I will post update videos if anything big happens, but for now, let's get started with the beginner's guide part of the video. What is Preservation Evoker? Preservation Evoker is a healer that can do just about anything. We're talking good heal over times, good spot healing, good burst healing, good AoE healing, and excellent external defensives, and pretty good damage as well. So what's the catch? The catch here is that Preservation doesn't always have access to all of its moves. Your Living Flame is the one move you always have available to you. Everything else is either a charge system, a cooldown, or uses Essence, which is our unique resource. And while I know that can sound a little bit intimidating, the cool part about Preservation is that there's a lot of right answers, not wrong answers. So when you're learning, you can kind of really feel things out and see how the heals feel as you use them and combine them together. And as you get to higher levels of play, you'll understand where the heal over times go versus the burst heals, and it'll start to make more sense as you go, but I promise as a beginner, it's not too overwhelming. The other shortcoming of Prez is that it's 25 to 30 yards in terms of range. There is one heal that goes 40 yards and another one that goes 80 yards. However, as good as that is, a lot of the times your positioning will be mandatory in order to heal people, as both of those long range moves require you to aim. I know that can also sound a little intimidating, but Preservation, not only do I have some good tips for you on positioning later, and it's got some pretty generous hitboxes thankfully, you also have the best movement in the game. Like for a healer, I'm pretty sure you and Mistweaver are tied for the best movement, and you can cast while moving on Preservation. So there's actually a lot of scenarios where you're not only going to be able to reposition, you can also be in position to heal your allies and cast while doing so. So it's not so bad, I promise you. Before we get into the guide proper, let's talk about Mastery. Mastery, if you're new to World of Warcraft, is a secondary stat that is different for each specialization in the game. For Preservation Evoker, it reads that healing done to allies is increased by Mastery percentage while their health percentage is lower than your own. So, if you're at say 80% health and someone is at 30% health, if you heal that player, they will receive 36% bonus healing as of my current stats. Now, let's just get a couple of little questions out of the way. You always give yourself Mastery, and Mastery updates as true or false. So either you have it or you don't have it. And this is relevant for heal over times. So if you were to say, give someone a heal over time and they had less health than you, the Mastery will be on, and each tick will produce a Mastery value higher, right? But if they go above your health percentage total, they will lose the Mastery percentage on that health tick. And then, like, of course, if you gain more health, your Mastery would turn back on, so on and so forth. Also, it's based on individual players, so if you heal everyone and the tank is higher health than you and two of the DPS are lower health than you, right, like, you'll get Mastery on the respective players. So it's not just on or off for all of your healing, it's on each individual heal that is calculated. And this is just to say that keeping yourself healthy on Preservation is pretty important. You receive bonus healing as well as your Mastery all the time on Prez, so it makes it kind of easy to heal yourself up before healing other people, and there's plenty of little tips and tricks to kind of keep you healthy that I'll go over later in the video. Now let's finally enter the Preservation walkthrough section. If you want to follow along with me, go grab the talent string down below in the description that's labeled the beginner build, and note that this is a Chrono Warden build. Depending on when you're watching this video and how the spec does at release and if it gets nerfed or not, Flame Shaper is looking to be stronger. However, Chrono Warden's just easier to teach, and everything you learn about Chrono Warden will transfer very nicely over to Flame Shaper, so I just think this is better for beginners. But if you're playing at any kind of high level of play, you might need to adapt your build or what you're doing to your team and whatever's strongest right now. So just keep that in mind, but for the sake of keeping things easy, we're going to stick to Chrono Warden for the sake of teaching. Also, furthermore, I'm going to keep my tooltips on screen in the top right, but due to a bit of a time crunch I'm under, I'm not going to zoom into all of these like I normally do. I hope you can forgive me. If I do forget one though, I will still put it on screen, but I'm trying to lessen my workload this time around because life has been a little crazy for me. So let's begin. The core of Preservation Evoker is Echo and Temporal Anomaly. Echo is an instant cast spell with a 30-yard range. It costs a small amount of mana, and it costs 2 essence, and if you're ever curious about essence, it's those 5 balls underneath my health bar. Echo says that you wrap an ally with temporal energy, healing them for an amount, and causing your next healing spell to cast an additional time on that ally at 116% of normal healing. Essence spells can't be echoed, which, will make sense as we go. But what this means is that if you press Echo on a target, yep, you get a small amount of healing on them, and then let's say I go and heal this target instead. You'll notice that 2 spells come out of me. Echo makes real copies of spells, and any direct healing that you do will be copied onto those targets. Preservation, whenever we say it's a combo class, this is what we're talking about, is that you use Echo to make moves that would otherwise be single target turn into cleave healing or AoE healing, and if you're new to WoW, cleave healing just means 2 to 3 target, typically. You can also echo a target and then hit them with a healing spell to then heal them twice over. So you can use this to both heal multiple targets or to super heal one particular target. Temporal Anomaly as a spell will also let us get out a bunch of echoes. These don't cost any essence, just a large chunk of mana, a small cooldown, and a 1.4 second cast time. We're going to send forward a vortex of temporal energy, absorbing an amount on you and any allies in its path. The absorption is reduced beyond 5 targets, but the first 5 targets that the Temporal Anomaly sees will also receive an echo. While it says 30% effectiveness, note that as of right now it should math out to roughly 50%, so I like to call them half echoes. Temporal Anomaly also is one of your moves that goes an absurd distance, somewhere on the realm of 80 whole yards. And as you might have noticed, it has an incredible size to it. So it's actually very easy to aim. So if you're worried about aiming, this hitbox is gigantic. It also will hit people behind you, by the way, when you first spawn it. So like, if you're worried about the spell not hitting people, trust me, it's a lot easier to hit than you think. But this means that we can get out a bunch of echoes in AoE in just a quick moment. So throw out a Temporal Anomaly, then throw out a healing spell, and bada bing bada boom, we just healed a whole bunch of targets. Now, that's pretty exciting. However, these are significantly weaker, but a lot of Preservation Evoker is going to look like this. I'm going to get out all these echoes, and then I'm going to heal someone with a spell of mine. Then I'm going to throw a Temporal Anomaly, and then I'm going to heal with another spell of mine. And then if I have more echoes, I can use those again, and again, and again, so on and so forth. So, cycling your Temporal Anomaly and your echoes is going to be the core of what you do. Now, to better understand it, let's actually go through our healing spells. Let's start with the 2 basic ones, Living Flame and Reversion. Living Flame, or I will call it Chrono Flame all the darn time, by the way, so just keep that in mind. Chrono Flame is a low mana cost move with a 30-yard range and a hefty 1.6 or roughly 1.8 second cast time, depending on your haste. Note that Chrono Flames just do a follow-up amount of damage or healing, depending on who you hit, and you don't need to worry about it too much. Living Flame is very much a standard healing spell. When you click it on a target, you will heal that target. Note that this is a real projectile, so it does have like an actual travel time before it gets to its destination, so just keep that in mind. Even on echoes, right? If I like echo up a bunch of targets, right, and then I heal myself, note that we still get a bunch of projectiles, right, for all the echoed targets. Keep that in mind. Note that every copy of a spell with Preservation Evoker is a real copy of the spell. So if it has any procs or chances to get you something nice, you're rolling the dice on every single cast of that spell, including the echoes. Now, Chrono Flame on its own isn't too powerful, but it is good when there's nothing going on to heal people up, and if you don't want to waste your other resources for maybe the reason of there's a big damage event coming and you want to use this current temporal anomaly, but you don't want to spend all of your echoes or all of your, other spells, yeah, Chrono Flame's a good one to go for. Also note that there is a talent that'll make it instant cast and 100% stronger. This stacks up to 2 times, and thus that version of the spell is very, very meaty and will get a ton of work done for you. So remember that if you're running that talent, you might have your living flame glow at times, and when it's glowing, it's instant cast and it'll be quite powerful, and then it doesn't feel bad at all when used with temporal anomalies or echoes. It's going to be putting out a ton of healing for you. Reversion is easily the most loaded spell in the entire game, so we're going to be here for a minute. This is a 2-charge instant cast spell with a relatively short cooldown and a small mana cost. Now, if you read the tooltip right now, it's not going to tell you everything, so I'm going to do my best. This is a heal over time, and it's a rather small one at that, so if I heal myself, it's okay, but it has a lot of effects attached to it. First of all, whenever Reversion crits, it will extend its duration by an additional 2 seconds, with a maximum of an additional 12 seconds on its already 15.6 second baseline duration. But there's a million talents to go over here. Those instant cast living flames come from reversion heals, so the more reversions you have out, the more chances you'll get to get these instant cast living flames if you're talented into Life Spark. Furthermore, every target with a reversion on them will be receiving 10% bonus healing. This is a really good time to note. Remember what I said about real copies of spells? Well, if you echo reversion someone, they will have 2 reversions on them. Okay, that means that they also get 20% bonus healing rather than 10. So these things do stack, so this can be really powerful. Having a bunch of reversions down is never like a bad thing on preservation. But the big one, and the reason we're the best tank healer in the game, reversion instantly heals the target for 15% of damage taken in the last 5 seconds. Note that this is the game does not care what's happened to the target. It simply looks at the damage they've received recently and heals for that amount. So you can echo reversion someone and you will heal them for 15% of damage taken in the last 5 seconds 2 times. If you were to then say reversion them again, that would be an additional 15% of damage taken in the last 5 seconds. So if you use this to spot heal someone, which I highly recommend, if somebody takes damage, a quick reversion or echo reversion is sometimes all the doctor ordered, you can use Golden Hour to quickly pick someone back up. However, with tanks especially, let's say you have a Blood Death Knight and their health bar's just going up and down and up and down. Well, if they get a little too low for your liking, right, just hit a reversion on them. I mean it, you will sometimes full heal the Death Knight instantly. And specs like Bear that receive bonus healing love Golden Hour, right? They're taking a ton of damage, they have a ton of health, you heal them for a ton. This is an awesome, awesome ability. Golden Hour is one of the best reasons to use reversion, but it doesn't stop there. Our Apex talent also replaces reversion and will still leave a reversion on a target. Marithra's Blessing states that you spring a bloom of life from your target, healing them and up to 4 other allies within 30 yards for an amount. Now, this sounds like a little weak if you've been reading our numbers, like 7,000 doesn't sound too strong. However, this is a random proc that you get whenever you use an essence spell, or you get a guaranteed one when you use your Dream Breath. But what makes this move special is that not only will it give you a charge of your reversion, or rather replace your reversion with a ready to cast Marithra's Blessing, if there's a bunch of echoes out in the field, you will cast multiple Marithra's Blessings. So now it's not one of these little things bouncing around a couple of times, it's like 5 to 6 of them bouncing around, and it's much, much more powerful. So Marithra's Blessing is an incredible heal, but while I'm about to go over it in more detail, it still drops a reversion on your target, so you still get the Golden Hour healing, you still get the bonus healing from Grace Period, and you can still get life sparks from those reversion ticks just like normal. So reversion is like very easily the most loaded spell in the game, and part of the reason I haven't shown you it yet is that note the rank 2 reversion protects allies, reversing 1% of all damage taken and healing them instead. These training dummies are always taking damage, so between the Golden Hour giving you a 15 something million heal and then 212,000 a second, yeah, right? You're not going to actually see those numbers. I just didn't want to click reversion without you realizing how ridiculous it looks on the training dummies. So I'm glad I got that out of the way. One thing to note about Reversion and Marithra's Blessing and Living Flame is that they have a chance to give you what's called an Essence Burst. An Essence Burst will make your next Essence spell cost no mana, no Essence whatsoever, and depending on your talents, it might be even stronger. Living Flame or Chrono Flame has a 20% chance to give you a Essence Burst, while Reversion has a 30% chance. If you see these Living Flames coming out of me, by the way, that's our tier set. Don't worry about it, I'll explain it later. So when you hit Marithra's Blessing, they all bounce around and you have a pretty high chance to get yourself these Essence Burst. Essence Burst is one of the most important parts about Prez, and that if you use your Essence Burst to either do more damage with the move Disintegrate, more on that later, or to get more echoes out with Echo, you can get more healing or restore your mana back, so you can kind of keep your resources rolling easier and easier. So whenever you see an Essence Burst, don't be scared about using it. You might be able to use it to get a big setup or to do some damage and get some mana back if you're starting to run low. Now that we've gone over these core healing spells though, let's go over the rest of our spells. Our final Essence spell is called Emerald Blossom. You're going to hear me yap about this move a lot longer later, but on Chrono Warden specifically, it's not very good. So it makes a bulb grow from the target that you click on, and then after 1.5 seconds, it'll heal up to 3 nearby injured allies within the blossom itself for an amount. It's a really pretty looking spell, it's very cool, and it'll be talented to hit 5 targets typically on Flame Shaper, and it'll do a million other things on Flame Shaper, but for Chrono Warden, it doesn't do a whole lot. Blossom is very niche in its application on Chrono Warden, so you don't have to worry about it too much here, but keep the button handy because if you ever get into Flame Shaper, you're going to need to have that button bound. Okay, now on to the more practical healing spells. And note that Emerald Blossom won't echo. So if I have an echo target and then I use a Blossom on them, note that the echo stays on the target. So it's still possible for me to echo afterwards. That'll be, again, core to Flame Shaper, not anything you really have to worry about here on Chrono Warden. Next up is Verdant Embrace. Note that this has 2 different talents, one that makes it ranged and do more healing, one that gives it an additional charge. So depending on the talent build I actually gave you down there, this might vary, and there's reasons to run both of these, and I'll go over that in the talent section later. Verdant Embrace is a move that will dash you to an ally, fly to them, and heal them for an amount, or you'll heal yourself if you click it on yourself. Verdant Embrace will also do a small amount of healing to yourself due to the talent Panacea, and it has an additional part to it called Lifebind, but I'm going to go over this when I go over the talent page later as to not overload you. Verdant Embrace is a little scary though. It will dash you towards the target, and with our current tier set, it'll always give you an Essence Burst as well, which is quite nice. Verdant Embrace is a great instant heal. It's nice to use when you don't have time to be casting Living Flames or to get smaller things done while you're setting up bigger heals. It's a very versatile move. Now, Dream Simulacrum's my favorite because it makes the move a lot stronger, but there's so many good applications of additional charges of Verdant Embrace that this is truly going to be a choice node by all stretches of the imagination. However, note that on Chrono Warden, it's also additionally a small heal over time. So you'll notice that after you hit someone with it, they'll get a bit of healing from you, and it's a pretty large amount given how short the duration is. So Verdant Embrace is going to do a lot of work for you on Chrono Warden. It'll also do a lot of work for you on Flame Shaper, but we'll go over that later. Verdant Embrace is nice though in combos, and let's say you don't want to dash to a target, you can always actually cast it on yourself and then heal the other targets, which I find incredibly useful. Next up on our list is Dream Breath. Take a second to read this one, but I will be breaking it down. It's a large mana cost move with a large amount of healing attached to it. This 24-second cooldown will allow you to charge up to 3 different levels of spell. Each level of the spell will do something slightly different. It's usually an adaptation on what it does in the first place. The level 1 will heal for a small amount, and then for a large heal over time, over 16 seconds. However, if you charge it all the way up to level 3 or level 4, it'll do more upfront healing rather than a large heal over time. So now at level 3, it'll do 28,000 instant healing, and then a lower duration heal over time afterwards. What's nice about this is, first of all, these moves are very, very easy to use. You kind of just start the channel and then you can aim it. But you can also adapt it to whatever your team needs. So if you need a burst heal, charge it up. If you need some healing over time in the background to help you out, a level 1 Dream Breath does a ton of work for you. On Chrono Wardens in particular, when you cast Dream Breath on something, you'll also send out up to 3 Chrono Flames as well. So just keep that in mind. It'll always be doing a little bit of burst healing on Chrono Warden when you press the button, whether you charge it up or not. Now, that's it for the core healing spells. There's one other healing spell in the form of damage, so why don't we go through our damage spells real quick, and then we'll wrap it all up with our basic rotation. So, starting off, Chrono Flames. Welcome back, Living Flame. When this move does damage, it simply means that you targeted an enemy. And note that it will restore the mana cost of the move if it's done to an enemy. Also note that it goes in a straight line, as opposed to wiggling when it goes to allies, which I think is a kind of a cute touch. Now, when doing damage with this move, you're not going to proc any of your echoes. So I can like say echo a few targets here, right? And then I'm going to go do damage. And note that I'm not healing my allies, right? That's a good thing. This means you can farm Essence Burst without necessarily accidentally using up your combo. And then of course you can go to combo and you can use any Essence Burst that you get from doing damage for your next combo. It's pretty versatile. If you don't know what to do for damage, standing there and hitting Chrono Flames is like a good idea. Like, you're never wrong for doing damage with this move. It's quite good. So yeah, use Chrono Flame, use it often. It's very fun. Next up is Azure Strike. This move is significantly weaker now than it's ever been. It only hits 2 targets, and while it can be talented to hit 3 targets, it's never better than a Chrono Flame. However, it does allow you to cast while moving. So I keep this move around because there are situations where, say, an enemy is chasing down one of your allies, right? Maybe it's a fixate mechanic, and sometimes you can slow those enemies. And so Azure Strike will let you permanently slow someone if you're allowed to just keep swinging on them. If you play PvP, by the way, and a Demon Hunter's chasing down your homie, Azure Strike that Demon Hunter and make them angry. It's a really, really nice spell for exactly that reason. Great for peeling. So Azure Strike, I don't use this very often, but when I'm on the move, if I don't want to use my hover charges, we'll talk about that later, and I want to get some damage down, you know what? Hitting Azure Strike is the way to go. If you don't remember how to use your Azure Strike very well and your damage profile, like one on the move, don't worry about it. This can be one move that if you forgot about it, you would only lose like its value in some certain niche scenarios where a slow would have been useful. Otherwise, it's just for padding your damage when you're on the move. Don't worry about it too much. Next up is Disintegrate. This is our final essence spell, and this costs 3 whole essence and no mana. It's a short range spell that will instantly do damage and it will slow the target. It'll also do that damage over a short duration while you channel the spell. Disintegrate is a pretty powerful spell. Technically, Chrono Flames is better in single target if you're just mashing one button. However, because it gives us mana back and it allows us to attack instantly, it does have sort of an edge over Living Flame. We can just use this to get our mana back, and it's a chunky amount, right? Like if I throw out a Temporal Anomaly and then I use Disintegrate, like I get my whole mana bar back before the move's done channeling. So this is quite a lot of extra mana to get back, but it also does its damage instantly. So sometimes you're in the middle of like healing and like things are pretty rough, and then like you want to do some damage. Disintegrate's nice because if you have to cancel it early, you can, and the damage starts instantly. If you don't cancel it early, it's still a lot of good damage. While there is more nuance to this move, my favorite feature being that it is castable while hovering, so you can kind of target something with a laser beam, which is really cool. Disintegrate is mostly used for getting your mana back, especially when you're a new player. Now, before I talk about our final move, Fire Breath, which is actually also a healing move, you have a 2-minute cooldown called Deep Breath. This can be talented to be a stun as well. However, Deep Breath as a move will just do a large amount of volcanic damage to any enemies in your path. You're immune to crowd control effects, or rather most of them, while flying, and the move will de-root you. Deep Breath is awesome. It's super cool to see. Just note that, like, if you're not using it as a stun, it is a little, I don't want to say boring, but like, it's just that otherwise it's like a 2-minute damage cooldown, and like that's all there's really going on here. So this isn't hard to utilize, and if you just see a lot of enemies and you're like, ooh, I'm gonna Deep Breath them, like good, that's a good thing. It'll do a large amount of damage, given that's all you're using it for. Okay, Fire Breath is the most important spell outside of Chrono Flame for your damage and Disintegrate for your mana. This is just like Dream Breath in that if we charge it up to a level 1, it'll do some damage instantly and then damage over time. If I charge it up, it'll do more of that damage instantly. However, we have a talent called Life Giver's Flame. This one's a little confusing. Fire Breath and Deep Breath, although the Deep Breath part's mostly ignorable, heal 5 nearby injured allies for 80% of the damage done, up to 5 targets, split evenly among them. I know that can sound a little confusing. When you Fire Breath a target, 80% of the damage it does will heal targets, your allies nearby. It will heal up to 5 targets though, so if you do damage to 100 enemies, I think it takes the 5 highest, but don't quote me on that. It'll take 5 of those damage numbers and turn that into healing. It's split evenly among 5 of your allies, and what that means is that basically the amount of damage you do, 80% of that is healing. If it is one target getting healed, they will receive all of that damage conversion to healing on their own. If there's 2 people hurt, it'll be split 2 ways, 3 ways, 4 ways, etc., etc. So the more mobs you're hitting with your Fire Breath, the more healing you're getting. So you can charge up your Fire Breath to make it a quick and fast, big bursty damage move that gets a good amount of healing done immediately, or you can do a quick little damage over time and let it roll for a long period of time, helping you heal in the background. Because yes, the heal over time aspect of it is that as long as it's doing damage over time, it's doing healing over time. Now, against one target, Fire Breath, while it's still worth using, it's not doing a lot of healing. Like, really, it's a little pitiful and it's not that good. However, if I were to say hit all of these enemies and then walk near my allies, that is a very noteworthy amount of healing, right? I'm not doing anything right now. I just did a damaging spell and now my allies are being healed for a pretty decent amount. So you can use Fire Breath as an additional heal over time. So my recommendation is just to make sure to hit the boss or as many targets as possible with a level 1 Fire Breath if you're not sure what to do. There are benefits to charging it up as well, one of which being called Leaping Flames. So yes, you get the damage immediately and that'll immediately do some healing, but Leaping Flames is a talent that says that Fire Breath causes your next living flame to strike 1 additional target per empower level. So by charging it up to level 3, I'm going to end up sending out 4 of these. And if there's an enemy and I use my Leaping Flames, there's only one enemy, it'll actually go and find targets to heal. So this doesn't count as direct healing, so it won't use up your echoes, but that can be really nice on a boss fight. And then furthermore, if I go to heal someone and there's no one left to heal, the game will in fact hit the enemy. I just messed it up. If I stand like a little more over here, like it'll realize that it can't hit the allies and it will send a living flame out towards any enemies that I'm in combat with, which is, I think, really funny. But so Leaping Flames means that by charging up your Fire Breath, not only will your Fire Breath heal, but now you can get some AoE healing done with your Living Flames or some AoE damage done with your Living Flames, which is really, really powerful. I'm going to leave it up to you how nuanced you want this to be, but if you want the simple version, a level 1 Fire Breath on all of your enemies is a very, very, very large amount of healing on all of your allies. So it's always nice to do. And in single target, it's still worth it for the damage, but it's just not doing as much healing in single target. So now that we've gone over all the basic spells, let's go over a basic healer rotation for Preservation Evoker. To keep things less confusing, I want you to note that, again, there's multiple right answers. If you're not sure what the best heal to use with all of your echoes, remember, just throw one out. Just give it a try, and you'll start to learn, oh, that's how this one healed, or oh, that one was a lot stronger than I thought it was. And you can start figuring out where you want to put things. If you're looking for some suggestions, Chrono Flame if you don't know what to do, fully charging a Dream Breath is a good amount of burst healing, and Marithra's Blessing is always a good heal when there's a lot of echoes down. So what's this beginner rotation? Well, I recommend echoing some people up or throwing a Temporal Anomaly. Then, while you wait for some damage, do some damage of your own. That's right, send out your Fire Breath, maybe a Disintegrate in there. You can even throw your Leaping Flames if you want, right? But then, when these targets get hurt, I can then heal them up. And then Temporal Anomaly's off cooldown, so I can throw it again. You can almost keep Temporal Anomaly on cooldown and continue doing damage, and then healing up as needed. Between your Temporal Anomalies, let's say we Temporal Anomaly, right? We heal everyone, right? Bada bing, bada boom. Oh, these people are getting hurt again. Well, I can now use my echoes and I could heal them up, right? And then I could go back to doing some damage. And oh, look, Temporal Anomaly is off cooldown. So now I can use that, and I can so on and so forth, keep cycling these moves and my damage. And there's no real wrong answers here. There's a lot of things that will work. One little rule I do have for you though is before these echoes fall off and before you press another temporal anomaly, cash them out. I use cashing out as my word for sort of ending a combo, if you will, or using all of my echoes, and cash them out with a reversion or a living flame. My recommendation will be reversion or Marithra's Blessing more often than living flame. Living flame's good though if you need a little more healing. The reason is that getting out a bunch of reversions is kind of always useful, right? Chances at your life spark, grace period for your next major heals, and potential essence burst that you would have gotten. And while the living flame also provides that essence burst, I think having the boosted healing is important, because now if I temporal anomaly into dream breath, targets that have my dream breaths on them are also receiving 10% increased healing with the reversion on them. So this can be a kind of a compounding effect that works out really nicely for you. There's also like no like harsh rules here, right? There's nothing about like I could throw a temporal anomaly, right? And then I could reversion these targets, and then let's say they get hurt. Well, maybe I just charge a dream breath, no echoes needed. And then I echo afterwards, and I use that Marithra's Blessing to get some healing done. And then I throw the temporal anomaly, and then I Verdant Embrace. And then, oh, this person's hurt, so I'll echo them and Verdant Embrace this person. There's no real rules here, just stuff for you to play with. And this can get unbelievably deep. You can go absolutely off the walls with your healer combinations on Preservation Evoker. Just remember, there's a lot of right answers. So throw out those temporal anomalies and feel things out. And if there's not a whole lot of damage to heal, press something like reversion and call it a day. Sometimes reversion's good, right? Let's say your tank just got hit after you throw a temporal anomaly. Hey, you know what? Reversion the tank, right? It's okay. Everyone else might have received less healing, but you just got a bunch of reversions out. You kept your tank alive, and now, hey, look, right? You can start healing those other people as well. So on and so forth. That's going to do it for most of the beginner tutorial. I want you to stay for the one next move, but then we're going to get a little more complicated going into the cooldowns, the defensives, and all that other good stuff. We also want to talk about our dispels, because you do have dispels, right? We need to talk about naturalize. However, if you want to just go press some buttons and some basic content, I think you're good to go. But make sure you hear the next move, because it is very important, and you'll want to learn what all these moves do anyway. Before we go over our movement ability that I absolutely want you to hear, let's talk about Blessing of Bronze. This is a inconsequential mana and cooldown cost, 40-yard range raid buff, 15% cooldown reduction for 1 hour on your major movement ability. For us, that's going to be our hover. And note that not all of these are created equally. I believe you get Spirit Walker's Grace on Shaman, so you get some cooldown reduction off of your move while casting ability. That's pretty powerful. Meanwhile, Priest gets Life Grip, you know, the move where they pull somebody towards them. Listen, at least we get it on hover, right? Like, we're not priests out here, thank goodness, said the priest player. So, hover. Launch yourself and gain 30% increased movement speed for 10 seconds. You have 2 charges of this, and it's instant. You can cast spells while moving. Just note that empowered spells still require you to plant your feet and stop moving. Although you can keep the hover going, you just have to stop for a moment, and then you can keep moving. If you press any direction with this move, you will dash in that direction. It's 8-way cardinal and intercardinal dashing. And also, because we're Chrono Warden, we have warp, which means that it actually is a blink. So it can be a little confusing to watch. But yeah, if I hold forward and I hit hover, I'll teleport forward, and now I'm flying. Now I can cast spells while moving. Great. Hover can also stack with itself as well, so you can get all the buffs at once. These bronze balls that come out of us as part of Chrono Warden. And also note the in-place version of this move is very useful, as if you don't want to go flying in a direction, simply press hover with no other movement abilities and you'll be fine. I do want to note, this is a real blink, so you actually like teleport in a direction. So if there's like some ground effect between you, you won't run through the ground effect, you will warp past the ground effect, which is pretty useful. I do think, however, and it's been a minute since I've tested it, that if you're mid-air and you press hover, even on Chrono Warden, I think that's just a fancy looking spell effect. I don't actually think you teleport, I think it's a dash. I tested it forever ago, but it has been forever, so if it is actually a blink now, I'm sorry, that's my bad. But yeah, when you use it in the air, I think it's still a dash. When you use it on the ground, it's like a right and proper blink. So just keep that in mind. Hover is awesome. You're going to want to use it regularly. This is going to be what fixes most of your positioning problems. Like, let's say you're DPS are in Turbo Narnia, and you got to make sure you fire a Temporal Anomaly at them. Well, you can cast Hover, aim towards them, move into the correct position all at the same time. You can also cast Hover while casting other spells. So like I can be channeling Living Flame and I can start a Hover, which is extremely useful. It won't cancel channels like Disintegrate as well. So you can actually be in the middle of, like, let's say you're doing damage to the boss. You can be like, oh dear, I gotta move. And you won't stop your Disintegrate. You'll simply start flying in that direction and continue casting the spell. Now, we have one other way of moving, and that's double jump. When you press jump in the air, you'll fly forward and upwards a little bit. Double jumping is great. This is part of the reason why you should never be out of position as Evoker. You can kind of get anywhere very, very, very quickly. And I am taking currently the talent that makes that glide speed and height faster, but I think for the beginner build I have you on this one, Terror of the Skies, but it doesn't matter. I just want you to know that you have it. Next up, let's go over our dispels, and yes, we have 2 of them. Ooh. So Naturalize is the 30-yard range move, small mana cost. Note that all dispels don't go on cooldown unless they actually dispel something, and it's only an 8-second cooldown when you do dispel something. Naturalize says that it cleanses harmful effects from the target, removing magic and poison effects. Note that every healer gets the magic dispel portion, and then whatever's extra on it is usually unique to the healer. We have poison, so we can do poison and magic, which sounds like it might be a little weak, but that's because we have Cauterizing Flame. This 1-minute cooldown dispel, same rules, right? Doesn't actually go on cooldown unless it dispels something. This one will heal the target when you dispel any effect off of them, and it will remove all poison, curses, and diseases, including the new bleed. I say the new bleed, it's been like a multiple expansions. Bleed is the crazy one because no one else has a bleed dispel. Like Holy Paladin can technically use Blessing of Protection to give a physical immunity and then the bleed will be removed. You can actually dispel bleeds, which is awesome. That being said, this is a 1-minute cooldown. So it is a little costly, right? But like, who's going to complain? We got the best dispel in the game and we get 2 dispels. I'm never saying no to that. I didn't go over this earlier. This is one of our more important healing spells. This is Time Dilation. I say healing spell. It's an external defensive. 30-yard range, small mana cost, instant cast, and actually OGCD. So you can press it and immediately cast another spell, or like weave it between 2 spell casts like rather easily. But while a target is time dialed, they will be taking 50% reduced damage. The damage that they reduced will instead be dealt to them as a damage over time effect. This is Stagger from Monk, and Stagger from Monk is a really, really, really powerful effect, right? That's what makes Brewmasters tank. So you can make just about anyone a Brewmaster with a click of a button, which is pretty cool. But this is the strongest defensive in the game. 50% DR is incredible. Now, while pain suppression is technically better because there's no downside to taking damage over time, this move, and pain suppression is a disc priest ability for those of you who don't know, this move at 50 seconds, right, with 2 charges is crazy. You have a 50% DR available every 50 seconds. That's nuts. And we're really good at healing people who've taken damage recently. So, like, this plays really well into our kit. Furthermore, do not fear using a time dilation on yourself. This will help you maintain mastery even longer over major damage checks. So if you're really worried about people dying, you can weave in a time dilation between your other spells, keep yourself alive, it won't proc your echoes, and therefore you can continue healing as normal while you take significantly reduced damage. Another external defensive we have, this is Zephyr. It's a 2-minute cooldown. Now, this one's a little weird. You and 4 other allies will lift into the air for a little bit, 30% faster for 8 seconds. However, area of effect effects are 20% reduced. So area of effect attacks are called avoidance, like avoidable spells. And this is like dangerous wind, bombs on the ground, like bad floor stuff, etc. If somebody does like a shadow bolt volley, that's a bunch of single target spells hitting multiple people. That doesn't count. And sometimes a dangerous wind effect is actually a debuff on a target. So if it's a debuff on a target, then Zephyr won't actually reduce the damage they're taking. But there's also some super weird ones. If you played in the War Within, the Dawnbreaker's final boss would actually do this like acid spray move, right? And it put a damage over time on everyone. So it doesn't seem like it's Zephyrable, but the initial hit of the move is this like dangerous wind effect that hits all of you, and thus you can actually Zephyr the start of the move. So I recommend playing around with Zephyr and figuring out where it's useful and where it isn't useful, as it's a 2-minute cooldown. But this is ultimately a really powerful effect, especially if there's any like bombs out in an arena that like are going to do damage to the whole platform or something like that. Zephyr will work. It just works on you and 4 nearby allies within 20 yards, so you can't hit the whole raid with this. This is just going to be for you and your homies, especially in dungeons. Alright, next up is Obsidian Scales. This is a very milquetoast defensive. It's 1.5 minute recharge, 2 charge. You reduce damage by 30%. Wahoo, nothing to really write home about here. Now, there is a talent that makes us heal back damage that we took from our Obsidian Scales. This is reworked, by the way, if you're curious if this used to be something different. It was. Renewing Blaze says that Obsidian Scales surrounds you with Renewing Blaze, causing 100% of the damage it prevented to be healed back over 8 seconds, which is weaker than it used to be. However, it's still some free healing, so, you know, hitting your Obsidian Scales will get you some of your health back too if you're taking damage. It's nice, it's good. There's not much more to talk about here. Let's go over crowd control and some of our weird moves before we go into the cooldowns, as we're going to spend a whole lot of time on the cooldowns. First, for crowd control, we have Tail Swipe. We're currently talented into it being a 1 minute. 8 yards around us will be knocked up and a little bit away. It's a very cool move. 1 minute cooldown, great. Then we have Wing Buffet. This is a 1 minute move that's very similar to Tail Swipe, except it's a knockback, and it's also a 1 minute cooldown. This is the one move, by the way, that you will get as a racial if you play Drakthir on any other spec, and it'll be a 3 minute cooldown instead of a 1 minute cooldown. By the way, if any of you comment about Wing Buffet and that I'm saying it wrong, it's the buffet of wings. A wing buffet. Your dragon has wings. Moving on. A Pressing Roar is a 2 minute cooldown, and it can be talented into a 1.5 minute cooldown. But this is a cone in front of you, and anyone hit by this cone will receive 50% increase in crowd controlled duration. This does not apply to knockups, which Blizzard, please, I'll do anything. I want to send someone to the moon. Let me send someone to the moon. That being said, if you sleepwalk someone, if you stun them with your deep breath, you're going to be doing a 50% better version of that. This means in PvP, if you are Pressing Roar and sleepwalk someone, they will be asleep for the rest of their life. Like they'll just watch their teammate die as they slowly walk towards you. But you're mostly going to use a Pressing Roar in really competitive dungeons with good players that are like, hey, we're going to do a Sigil of Silence setup, and we're going to have you a Pressing Roar them so that they stay silenced for longer, right? So it's a pretty cool effect, but it's mostly using coordinated play. Now, there is a talent called Overawe, where Pressing Roar removes 1 enrage effect from each enemy, and that cooldown is reduced by 30 seconds. I believe this will remove 1 effect, no matter how many stacks that it has. Don't quote me on that, I'm almost positive that's how it works. But Overawe ends up being really great in high-level dungeons. If there's like these enemies that have like a stacking enrage, right, you can use Roar to kind of get it off of them. I'm Pressing Roar to get it off of them. It's a cool button. It's a niche button. If you ever want to use it somewhat effectively, I highly recommend using it during your deep breath. You'll stun everything with deep breath. It's a 3-second stun. It's 50%, so it's 4.5 seconds instead of 3 seconds. Hey, that's a longer stun, right? That's pretty useful. Landslide is a 1.5 minute cooldown, 40-yard range root. When you slam this across some enemies, they'll get rooted for 15 seconds. Damage can break the effect as well, so you have to be a little bit careful. However, sometimes in a pinch, this can stop somebody from dying from like a fixate mob, or if there's an enemy that's getting away and you need to make sure they don't go somewhere, you can always root them for 15 seconds. It's nice, it's niche, it's mostly used in PvP, but I would rather you know that it exists rather than you don't know it exists. Rescue is a really interesting move. Oh, that's not rescue, that's my macro. Someone remind me, I'll put this macro in the description because it makes rescue a little easier to use. Rescue is a 1 minute cooldown with a 30-yard range. You'll pick up an ally and move to the new location that you select. It also clears any movement impairing effects from you and your ally. And in addition, it doesn't say it here, they can cast while you're using rescue, but note that some moves like empowered moves will still not be happy if you rescue them. And if you rescue someone backwards, right, like, and they're aiming away, then they will suddenly be unable to hit the enemy. I'm going to be honest with you, rescue is no longer a defensive. You might remember it being a defensive. You're going to use rescue to bring people out of range who don't want to move in, right? If there's a stubborn warlock at max range and you're sick of not healing them, rescue them. Sometimes players are going to be really happy you rescued them because they couldn't reposition in time, and you get to help them reposition and they get to continue casting. Sometimes players forget that preservation's short ranged, and they'll like kind of just go back to being at 40 yards, and then you'll rescue them and they'll be like, oh, you're right, thank you. But rescue is my first line of defense. If the player continues to position poorly, even after you politely ask them to move in, let them die. You can hear me talk about that again later. Let them die. Sometimes they gotta. Now let's start talking about our cooldowns. There's a lot going on here. I just want to get the most important one out of the way. Fury of the Aspects. This is Bloodlust. This is Time Warp. This is Heroism. Primal Rage. 5-minute cooldown. 10-minute exhaust period. Everyone in the party receives 30% increased haste. A party and raid for the next 40 seconds. This is 30% flat haste, right? So it ignores haste modifiers, or rather it like ignores the stat weight you have on haste. So instead of you getting a bunch of haste stat, it just gives you plus 30%. It's pretty powerful, the way that it's worded. That being said, Fury of the Aspects is the best Bloodlust effect in the game. And if you want to know why, you already know. Rainbow Dragons. What's not to love? We have a lot of cooldowns to go over, and I guess I didn't talk about mass return, but like this is a mass res for out of combat. Let's start with the easiest ones, and then we'll get into the more complicated cooldowns. Especially in Chrono Warden, you have a bonus extra cooldown to think about. Rewind is a 4-minute cooldown, 40-yard range spell with a decent mana cost on it, but you will rewind 30% of all damage taken in the last 5 seconds by all allies within 40 yards. Now, it's 200% stronger outside of raid. This is incredible. This means that if the going gets rough and everyone just took a large amount of damage, you can hit rewind and quite literally undo the damage. Now, it does take a moment for that healing to hit, and remember, it is only the last 5 seconds. So if you're not quick with it, or if it's damage that has to occur over a couple of seconds, you might not want to hit rewind the moment you all take damage. You might want to let it kind of stack up a little bit, but rewind is the get out of jail card, right? You press this, you fix the problem, and enough is enough. Sometimes I use this only on my tank to keep them alive. It's that good of a move. Granted, most of the time you're going to use it because you feel like you can't keep up, and it's time to catch back up. So use rewind often when you're learning, get a sense for how it feels, and also just take note. Right now, if I cast rewind, watch it pulse the healing, right? It's not all at once. It took a couple of seconds for all that healing to come out. But once you get a feel for that, this is the best oh shit button in the entire game. It will just fix the freaking problem. So keep rewind nearby. 4-minute cooldown. You can reduce it to a 3-minute, but it's just not something you want to rely on. It's something that you want to have there in case of emergency, break glass, and hit rewind. The next cooldown to talk about, I think, is the easier of the remaining two. Tip the Scales. This is a 2-minute cooldown for Flame Shaper, and it's 1.5 minute for our beginner build. Now, if you're a Flame Shaper player, just note that Tip the Scales, it just makes your next empowered spell instant and full charge, right? So it'll be level 3 or level 4 immediately when you cast it. Great stuff, super useful. You can use it as an emergency heal with Fire Breath or with Dream Breath, right? It's great. You'll rip thread off your tank sometimes, that's funny. Start of a pull, tanks gathering everything, Tip the Scales, Fire Breath. Ooh, yeah, that's a fun one. However, for you Chrono Warden players, and I'm going to go over this again later, Tip the Scales overloads you with temporal energy, increasing your haste, movement speed, and cooldown recovery rate by 30%, decreasing over 30 seconds. This means for roughly the next 20 seconds, you're kind of a god. Haste, movement speed, and cooldown recovery rate is nothing to scoff at. That is a very powerful effect, and you're still going to get that instant cast spell. So this is what it looks like right now if I just cast some Chrono Flames, right? It's pretty slow, you know what I mean? All right, Tip the Scales, Fire Breath, and then watch the Chrono Flames, right? I'm moving right now, and my moves are coming off cooldown exceptionally quickly. So you're going to get everything back a little bit quicker, you're going to move a little bit quicker, and you're going to be getting these spells back. It's just, it's a really good cooldown. Remember that though. Chrono Warden gets an extra cooldown, and it's not cooldown in the traditional sense that you press it and fix a problem. It's more akin to some of the Holy Priest cooldowns. When you hit Tip the Scales, and the moment you press Tip the Scales, not the moment you actually press the button, like the spell that it empowered, you are more powerful, and you have to play better. But if you play with these, like this buff correctly, you're going to do incredible stuff. So remember, it's sort of an install state, right? If you play fighting games, it makes you more powerful. Use it to the best of your abilities. One final note on Tip the Scales, you can actually cast this before a dungeon, right? Well before the dungeon starts, you can hit Tip the Scales, and then one of your empowered spells will be like powered up and like ready to go. And then when the dungeon starts, it'll actually reset the timer on Tip the Scales in Mythic Plus, so you can instant cast Fire Breath, Tip the Scales, instant Dream Breath. It's very cool. Just wanted to let you know. All right, let's talk about Stasis. This is a very complicated move, and as a beginner, there is another move you can use instead of this, but I want you to get used to Stasis early on, as this is a move that you will be using quite frequently. It's got a hefty mana cost, it's instant cast with a 1.5 minute cooldown. Just note that when we press the move, it doesn't go on cooldown immediately. So, when you cast Stasis, your next 3 helpful spells will be duplicated and stored in a time lock. You may reactivate Stasis at any time within 30 seconds to quickly unleash. What I recommend is putting 2 big spells in here. So maybe something like Temporal Anomaly and then a Verdant Embrace or a Dream Breath or whatever have you, right? The third spell you put in, or if you click off the debuff, but more importantly, the third spell you put in will activate the cooldown. For the next 30 seconds after you put that third spell in, Stasis will begin its cooldown and let you recast it to unleash everything you already put in it. So, yeah, you know what? Let's put an Echo on myself, right? That's a fine ender for a Stasis. And then, let's say we're doing damage, la 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 la, right? And then, oh no, my team's hurt. Well, I can do something like pop Stasis instead of casting a spell, healing everyone up. And look, my Dream Breath, my Temporal Anomaly, they're all still on, or like ready to go. They're off cooldown. So I can use those immediately afterwards. Ending Stasis with something like a Temporal Anomaly allows you to heal up a bunch of people and then throw another Temporal Anomaly that you can then combine with your already available spells, and then your Temporal Anomaly is back off cooldown and you could press it again, and the list goes on and on. Try to put 2 big spells in there. My favorite is Temporal Anomaly, Marithra's Blessing, Temporal Anomaly, but echoing yourself is always a good way to end it as well. There's some really goofy setups with Cauterize and Stasis, although that is super duper ultra niche and won't work the way that you hope it does, so just keep that in mind. But Stasis is a relatively confusing move. Like, seriously, it's not easy to use, so just use it often and get a sense of how it works. If you really don't want to juggle and deal with it, you can go Dream Flight. This controls the exact same way Deep Breath does, except it's a healing breath. And while it is typically weaker than Stasis in most scenarios outside of Raid, where it can be better depending on what your team needs, Dreamflight is okay in dungeons, especially if, like, let's say you're getting into Prez and you're like, okay, like I'm doing good, but Stasis is really hard to use and I just want to remove one more thing I have to do. I think Dreamflight's the way to go then. Just make sure you get your practice in with Stasis. The best way to use Stasis is, okay, let's assume everyone just took damage. I'm going to fire off a Dream Breath. I'm going to hit Stasis, I'm going to throw Temporal Anomaly, and I'm going to heal my lowest health target. Okay, great. The next time they take damage, right, I have a fully loaded Stasis. So I'm healing, and then I go back to doing damage, right? Ooh, hit a little Deep Breath, blah, 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 blah. Oh no, my team is hurting again. Stasis. Right? And then I can use that momentum to get even more healing done, so on and so forth. So, use Stasis, try it often. I'm done talking about it. Moving on. All right, now we're gonna go through the talents. This is my second time recording this because the last one was way too long. Listen, I'm gonna go really fast here, and I'm really sorry about that. Pause the video if you need to really look at something, but here's the honest truth, and I say this as a teacher, and I know I'm giving you homework, I'm sorry, but whenever you're learning a new spec, it's important to read and reread your talents and your spell book and whatnot, your mastery, as you go, because you're going to learn a lot about the interactions and the little things. I'm going to stop and talk at some of the things that are really important here, but I am going to like schmoove because there's so many talents to get through and we have to talk about the hero talents, and these videos end up like 2 hours. I'm trying my best to avoid a 2 hour edit, which by the way is like a 6 hour edit. So I'm going to go as quick as I can. Here's where Landslide is. We're also going to start with the Evoker tree. Here's where Landslide is, Obsidian Scales, Expunge, Verdant Embrace, Wing Buffet becoming a 1 minute cooldown, Disintegrate channels 20% faster, which is very, very useful when you're trying to get your mana back quickly. Forger of the Mountains just makes your landslide better. We don't really take it in PvE. Innate Magic, Essence regenerates 5% faster and then 10% faster with 2 points. This is only really good if you have a decent amount of haste, and this is sort of like a niche application, but in raid, you might run High Mastery with a good amount of haste, and then you run 2 points in this to get a little more Essence regen. Your Essence scales off of haste regeneration, like your haste makes your Essence regen faster. I hope that makes sense. And so this can really compound with more haste, but like it's mostly for raid because you want to get like more echoes out, and this might let you get 1, maybe 2 more echoes out in a ramp, and that's like a really big deal. However, in like Mythic Plus and even in PvP, I never take this as you don't really get a whole lot of value out of it. Here's where Obsidian Scales gets an additional charge. Tail Swipe becomes a 1-minute cooldown. Living Flame is just 6% better damage and healing. Scarlet Adaptation, if you ever need a talent point to remove, this is the one to go for. It just converts some of your healing into damage the next time you Living Flame, but like if you're strapped for points and want to get something, this is a great way to get something else out of your kit. In fact, I might even argue that this is like better than Scarlet Adaptation, but to each their own. Here's where Cauterize is, Cauterizing Flame. This makes you faster at the start of your hover. Recall's really interesting. It'll let you return to the location of your Deep Breath. So if you Deep Breath or you Dream Flight, you can just teleport back to where you were. Excellent for in raid if you have to do something really dangerous. You can go do the dangerous thing with Deep Breath or Dream Flight and then come right back. This makes your Living Flame and Emerald Blossom 30% more effective on yourself. Ancient Flame I didn't talk about, but whenever you cast Emerald Blossom or Verdant Embrace, your next Living Flame is 40% faster. If you use an instant cast, I do not believe it consumes this buff. This buff also never goes away until you consume it. So it's extremely useful for kind of quickly starting some healing right after doing another action or quickly doing some damage. 4% more damage. We love it. Tip the Scales is here. Note that these nodes are not connected. And then over here is healing done and received is increased by 6%. Next to it, Sleepwalk, excellent PvP CC. You want to know where it is? It's right here. Azure Strike hits an additional target. You never need this as preservation. It does nothing for us. And then getting 2% leech while nice is not worth 2 talent points. Over here, Emerald Blossom heals 2 additional allies. Flame Shaper players, that's really useful. Chrono Warden players, you're going to ignore this node. Hover lasts longer, extra stamina, magic resistance, great stuff. Fire Breath's damage over time lasts 4 seconds longer. That's nice, and that doesn't matter what charge level. It's just always 4 more seconds. While above 75% health, you're faster, which is neat, but we don't take it. Here's where Renewing Blaze is, the healing that you get from your defensive. Dazing slows targets, so Wing Buffet and Tail Swipe will slow a target by 70% for 4 seconds. It may be only until they're hit. I don't remember how Daze works. I never take this talent. Panacea, Emerald Blossom, and Verdant Embrace always heal you for a little bit, which is quite nice. Stretch Time, this one's really fun. Whenever you Deep Breath, and I believe also Dream Flight, 100% of the damage you take is instead dealt over 10 seconds. You can do some nonsense with this. You can take an unbelievably lethal hit and then like heal it back up before it would kill you. Very interesting, very fun use of this. Combine this with a time dilation, you can become immortal through just about anything. Unravel, direct damage from Fire Breath consumes absorbed shields from enemies, dealing a large amount of spell frost damage. 82,000 is not a small number at my current item level. Like, that's good. So if there's like a shield heavy dungeon, you might want to remove like Terror of the Skies and just run like Unravel. Like that'd be like really powerful. Here's where Oppressing Roar is. Here's where Overawe is connected to it. Glide is 10% faster and 10% higher. Here's where Leaping Flames is. Terror of the Skies turns your Deep Breath into a stun. Foci of Life. Thank you for teaching me how to say this, chat. It just makes your Renewing Blaze faster. We don't need it. Here's where Rescue is. It no longer provides a shield, so we don't typically take Twin Guardians, which is here. That requires like coordination. Green spells heal 10% more health. Yippee. Source of Magic. This is for you raiders out there. This is a blue spell that you can give to an ally healer, and you will restore their mana per level of your empowered spells. And while this is super cool and useful, and below it you can give them 3% damage and healing, what's not to love? Oh, well, you can't use it in dungeons. This is only for co-healers. This is never for you. So in BGs and in raid, you're going to use this a lot. For dungeons, forget about it. Here's where you get an extra charge of hover. I already went over Terror of the Skies. So Spatial Paradox and Time Spiral. Time Spiral is the one you're going to see more often. 2-minute cooldown, great in raid, 40-yard range. Everyone around you gets their movement cooldown back. So for you, it's going to be hover. For shamans, it's once again going to be Spirit Walker's Grace. And for poor holy priest, or for all the priests, it's going to be Life Grip. For whatever reason. This is super powerful though, right? And remember, hover charges stack, so you can pop this, hover. It's beautiful. We love it. Next to it, Spatial Paradox. This is more of a raid tool for, I mean, like, Time Spiral is also a raid tool, but it's good in dungeons as well. Spatial Paradox less so. It gives you 100% more range for 10 seconds, and you can cast while moving. You can give this to a friendly nearby healer, and you and them will receive the buff. Here's the thing. It doesn't let you cast empowered spells while moving, and while the 100% range sounds nice, it's a 3-minute freaking cooldown. It's only so good. You really use this for, like, let's say you have a Discipline Priest and they really need to ramp, right? But you're in a mechanic where you have to run for your life. Well, you can assign your Spatial Paradox to help them through this mechanic, and they can, like, continue casting spells and ramping while on the run. And then finally, here's where Zephyr is. Okay, onto the preservation side of the tree. We're going to go really quick because there's some stuff we absolutely have to talk about. Here's Echo, here's Dream Breath, here's Reversion, here's Rewind, here's Time Dilation, here's where Essence Burst and its second charges. Temporal Compression. Every bronze spell you cast will give you a stack. You can have up to 4 stacks. Each stack takes 10% off of your next empowered spell's charge time. This is awesome. Getting 40% off of a Dream Breath or a Fire Breath is really cool. There's a talent down here that when you consume one of those, you get an Essence Burst. So this is a really nice, like, Raider talent interaction. But if you're ever wondering why your spells are sometimes faster, your empowered spells, this is why. Lifebind. Verdant Embrace temporarily bonds your life with an ally. This does not work through Echo anymore if you play during, like, say, Dragonflight, causing your healing on either partner to heal the other for 60% of the amount last 8 seconds. This only qualifies for your heals, and it can be applied to multiple targets with Wings of Liberty. But essentially, if I, like, Verdant Embrace, and then I heal myself, or I heal one of these targets, I will heal, and they will heal. However, it's important to note that I believe you have to heal yourself to heal everyone else, and healing one of the other people only heals you, not the other partner. Please hold. I'm going to test that super quickly just to make sure it's as I remember it. Yeah, so if you lifebind multiple targets, you're probably going to be healing yourself in order to heal both of them, but any heal over times that you have will also be applied to them, and any heal over times that they have from you will be reapplied back to you. It does not work with other people's healing. So, like, if you were to lifebind a tank and then they frenzy regeneration, I don't believe that heals you in any way, shape, or form. Okay, next up is Unshakable. Your empowered spells are 10% more effective, and then while charging a healing empowered spell, which right now is just Dream Breath, you cannot be knocked back. This is really cute. You can use it to parry knockbacks. A very fun piece of tech. Dream Breath's cooldowns reduced by 6 seconds right here. Empowered spells increase your essence regeneration rate. Might have a use in raid, but don't quote me on that. I don't know if anyone takes that. I'm going to come back to these two in a moment because we're going to spend a million years here. Exhilarating Burst. This is less good than other talents, but if you want to cook up something weird, this is the one to do it. Your crits are 230 and then 260% more effective instead of the usual 200% each time you gain Essence Burst. So for the next 10 seconds after an Essence Burst, which is like all the damn time, mind you, you're getting 260% out of your crits. This is rad. It's a lot of healing, but I don't know if it's better than other talents. This makes it good, but niche. So if you want to come up with a fun little build, this might be the secret sauce that you're looking for. So just keep it in mind when you're building. Font of Magic says that your empowered spells can have one more level to them, and you reach that empowered level 20% faster. So your Dream Breath and your Fire Breath will now hit their maximum rank faster, and you can get more damage up front or more healing up front with them, etc., etc. You don't actually need this talent, but if you do want it, it's fun, it's useful. The one below it's mostly for raid, increases your maximum essence to 6, not really needed in 5-player content. It can be nice in raid, depending on who you are. Okay, let's now tackle Fluttering Seedlings. Fluttering Seedlings, note that with this one gets stronger, your Blossom sends out more Fluttering Seedlings. It does not increase the healing that is received by them. So Emerald Blossom sends out 1 and then 2 Flying Seedlings when it bursts, plus up to 3 additional Seedlings if the Emerald Blossom heals fewer than 3 allies, and that's at max rank. Seedlings heal each ally within 40 yards for roughly 9,000 at my current item level. So as you spam blossoms, you're firing out these seedlings that are doing additional healing for you. This in its own right is actually better than you think it is, but we can go further beyond, because Field of Dreams says that every other Emerald Blossom will make another Emerald Blossom out of our Fluttering Seedlings. Now, useless on Chrono Warden, like we don't got a reason to run this, but for Flame Shaper, you can run these talents, and while it is 3 talent points, it's a little bit hefty. Here's the trick. Fluttering Seedlings also consume flame now, so if you're coming back from a different season, yeah, you're consuming flame with those Fluttering Seedlings as well as the Emerald Blossoms. This makes it an unbelievably effective method of healing for Flame Shaper. This might be what makes it so strong next season. One of the big reasons it's so strong next season. So, excellent talents, a little hard to pick up, but well worth it for the Flame Shaper enjoyers out there. Depending on how strong it is, I'm going to say this like at least 2 more times tonight. Remember, it might be meta, Prez might be meta, and Flame Shaper might be like super strong on launch. It could get nerfed into the ground, it could be bug fixed if it's like overperforming and it was a bug. Who knows? Just keep in mind that I can't edit this video after I post it, and I'm trying to make it evergreen, but if Flame Shaper is powerful, these are the talents that are probably really like sending it to the next level. Over here, Golden Hour, this is where that is. This is why your echoes are stronger than what they read on the tooltip. This is where just-in-time time dilation gets an additional charge in 10 seconds off its cooldown, which is busted as all hell. The one next to it, this might sound really nice. 15% of delayed damage from time dilation is absorbed. Yeah, that's really cool, but it's not better than 2 charges. It's better specifically the moment like your tank is going to get one shot by a mechanic with time dilation. This will ensure their safety. So this is more of like a world record pushing angle, or like in Raid, your tank just can't survive the last hit of something, so maybe delay harm is exactly what the doctor ordered. Otherwise, don't run this. Okay, we're going to spend a lot of time here, and I'm going to try not to waste too much of it because I could be here all day. Temporal Anomaly received a major change, so please listen. Resonating Sphere used to be a talent below it that made it apply echoes to the targets that it passed through. That is now baseline, which is great, which means there's now 2 new talents to play with right here. Nosdormu's Teachings is the strongest by far. Temporal Anomaly reduces the cooldown of your empowered spells by 5 seconds. That's Fire Breath and Dream Breath. Yes, both of them will be cooled down if they're both on cooldown. And on Chrono Warden, sometimes you have to throw a Temporal Anomaly before you press the spell, and so you miss the cooldown reduction on it, but so often you're pressing Temporal Anomaly that you'll make up for the ones that you missed and like you didn't get effective cooldown reduction out of. On Flame Shaper, you have 2 charges. You're almost always benefiting from Nosdormu's Teachings. So this is incredible bang for the buck. More spells, more healing, more damage. What's not to love? The spell next to it's going to sound really interesting, but we have to talk about it because I think it's a bit of a beginner's trap, and you need to know why. You replace Temporal Anomaly with Temporal Barrier. All the same stats on it, except it's about double the tooltip shielding, which is really cool. Still applies Echo. However, to the target within 30 yards of you, within 40 yards of them, I know that's confusing, that target and up to 4 nearby allies within 40 yards of them will receive the Echo and the shield. Okay, so this can sound really, really, really nice, right? This means it takes one thing out of the positioning side of preservation, making your life a little easier. However, Dream Breath is still something you have to aim. You still need to be in a good position to hit everyone with something like Dream Breath, and you might miss 1 or 2 targets with Dream Breath every once in a while, but you don't want to intentionally miss them. You still have to position well to use Temporal Barrier effectively with something like Dream Breath. So this might be nice for a beginner, but you need to understand you have to learn how to throw the damn Bronze Ball. The Bronze Ball is too damn good. You have to learn how to use it. Temporal Barrier's actual effective use that makes it really, really good is that shield, because it's double the tooltip of Temporal Anomaly, and while it only affects 5 targets, that is a much more powerful shield. And given how often you can get this out, you can use this to really survive some mechanics that are hard hitting and frequent. But given you would have gotten more healing out of Nosdormu's Teachings over the course of a dungeon where Temporal Barrier's effectiveness wouldn't be as useful all the time, Nosdormu's Teachings is almost always better. But Barrier has some real good applications. If you played last season, Algathar Academy's Veximus has a really annoying bomb mechanic, and it's always happening, and it can be damn near lethal when it lines up with the chaser mechanic that happens afterwards. We all take a bunch of damage and then have to run away from bombs. Temporal Barrier makes that way, 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 way easier to deal with, and actually is in contention for a way to run that dungeon more effectively than Nosdormu's Teachings, simply because there's a few boss fights Temporal Barrier gets a workout in. But Nosdormu's Teachings is almost always better, so I'm going to recommend it, but I just wanted to go through the nuance of Temporal Barrier so that you understood where it was useful. If you're really struggling with Prez's positionals, go for it. Just try to make sure you learn eventually how to throw the bowling ball that is Temporal Anomaly. Flow State is awesome, but it's a little niche, and I'll explain. This makes time move 5 and then 10% faster for you. So increasing your movement speed by 10%, your cooldown recharge rate 10%, and your cast speed by 10%. So things are coming back faster, you're casting faster, and you're running faster. Why don't we take this? Well, we do. Actually, a lot of people take this. The problem is it's a little awkward to navigate into this node. Like, for instance, I could do something like this, but oh, I broke my connecting node, so I can't do that. Oh, I'll take 2 points at a time with magic. And now I got some serious mana problems. So this can be a little tight. When you're playing in a coordinated group, though, and you can get away with less healing talents, this suddenly becomes very appealing and can help with certain healing profiles, like, for instance, single target sustained healing, which is our weakest healing profile because we're good at spot healing. We're not good at constantly healing in single target. Flow state does a lot of wonders for us to let more things like that happen, but it's hard to talent for. So while I recommend checking it out at some point, just note that it is a cost to get there, and I'm going to have you not run it as a beginner, and then you can go play around with it whenever you feel like getting a little freaky. It's okay. I love me some flow state. Don't worry. You're allowed to drool over this one. It's exciting. All right, here's Call of Ysera. Dream Breath is healing is increased and Living Flame is increased. Dream Flight is right here. Here's Stasis. Grace Period is located right here. I talked about Spark of Insight earlier. Eating a full temporal compression grants you an Essence Burst. This also works as Fire Breath, by the way. So, like, if you're ramping and you're like, oh, I want to use Spark of Insight, okay, just send a Fire Breath and then you'll get your free Essence Burst, right? So this is kind of nice. Ouroboros needs to be stronger to be useful, especially in Chrono Warden, where I think it could be good. Every time you echo, your next Emerald Blossom becomes 30% stronger, stacking 5 times, and this buff doesn't go away until you consume the buff. It's just not enough healing to be justifiable, but like once upon a time when this worked through echoes and was a lot of healing, this was like a genuine, wonderful little pocket emergency heal. It's just not working the same anymore. So while it's fun, it's not even niche. I just don't think it's worth it right now, but I would love to see it come back one day. Here's where Life Giver's Flame is. Inner Flame makes your healing over time abilities 50% stronger for 15 seconds, and you have a 100% Essence Burst chance, which is awesome. Dream Flight will make it last 20 seconds, and that's just because it has a longer cooldown. Here's the thing here. Stasis activates it immediately. It's not when you like unleash your stasis, it's like when you press the button to start storing spells. So stasis makes it a little awkward. You can do it, it's weird. Dream Flight makes it kind of dreamy to use and very easy to use. So if you want to use Inner Flame with stasis, you can. You want to use it with Dream Flight, I highly recommend it. Here's where Rewind becomes a 3-minute instead of a 4-minute. We almost never take this right now. Energy Loop, my beloved, is right here. And then Time of Need. I'm going to glaze the shit out of this, excuse my language. When you or an ally fall below 30% HP, a version of yourself enters your timeline and heals them for a large amount. Then they continue healing them for 8 seconds before they return to their timeline. What this means is they come out of a portal, they verdant embrace someone, whoever's low, and then they just start whipping heals into them for the next 8 seconds. Living Flames, I believe. And I don't know if they're the strongest Living Flames. Doesn't matter. It's a very, very useful spell. And at a 60-second cooldown, this is available so often. Also note that when you get this in your talent, in like your spell book, you can actually put it on your bars if you ever want to know when Time of Need is off cooldown. That being said, this is one of the best pugging talents in the game. You're going to see a build of mine later that takes this because I missed this in Season 1. I was like all of Season 1, I was like, damn, I really wish I had Time of Need, and I'm sick of it. I'm taking it now because it's so damn good. This is mostly for pugging. In PvP, by the way, godsend. In PvP, it is second to none one of the best heals in the entire game. You're going to be so happy you brought it in PvP. All right, final rows. Dream Breath healing is increased by 30%, 15 then 30%. This is red spells deal additional damage and healing, 20 and then 40%. Reversion, Time Dilation, Echo, and Temporal Anomaly last 30% longer and costs 30% less mana. Look, this is okay for the length, the duration, it's fine. It's the mana cost here. 30% less mana is a big deal. These moves are freaking expensive, but this is the easiest place to remove talent points from. Like, this is a build I've been toying with. It's kind of fun, but like, you run out of mana really quickly. So you have to be kind of sharp. Maybe I run something a little more like this, right? Kind of a little more conservative 1 point in here. Yeah, and that can really soften the blow. This is like the ultimate node for playing around with builds and, currently, but it comes at an extreme cost. So just keep that in mind if you ever play with this node. Now, down here are capstones. Let's just go over the right side. Bronze healing and absorption increased by 15%. It's not very strong. I don't believe it affects golden hour whatsoever. It's good. It's nice with temporal barrier, but it's not strong enough. It doesn't feel good enough. It doesn't really affect reversion strong enough. It feels a little weak in its current state. Twin Echoes. Casting an Emerald Blossom causes your next Echo to cast on an additional ally within 25 yards at 100% effectiveness. Kind of useless on Chrono Warden without our old tier set because we don't drop free Blossoms anymore. However, Flame Shaper players, you're going to be spamming Blossom. This is going to be awesome because it means after you're done with your Blossom span, you consumed a whole bunch of Flame, right? Oh, you get an Essence Burst. You can Echo someone. Oh, you can Echo one more person. You got 4 Echoes out, right? Like it's going to be really, really useful for you. I've seen builds that don't run this. I have one that doesn't run this. However, Flame Shaper players might find that this is really nice and they want to keep it. Here's where Life Spark is. Mostly taken on Flame Shaper because their Living Flame isn't as good as Chrono Wardens. That being said, I'm going to run this on some Chrono Warden builds because it's still useful and it's still more powerful than our current Chrono Warden Living Flame. So, yeah, great talent. You're going to love having this. Titan's Gift is stupid powerful, but it's also pretty optional if you want to move it for another node that's a similar amount of healing. Essence Burst increases the effectiveness of your next Essence spell by 35%. So that's 35% more damage on your Disintegrate, 35% more healing on your Blossom, not your Consumed Flame, and then, or at least it shouldn't, it's not supposed to, and then 35% more on your Echo, as in the value of your Echo. So Marithra's Blessing is my favorite for this. You get a couple of Essence Bursts, right? And you put them down on your teammates, you get a couple more Echoes out, and when you throw that Marithra's Blessing, you're going to get a couple of ultra powerful versions bouncing around, which is incredibly useful. I love Titan's Gift. It's super versatile. It's a great addition to your kit if you want to use it. All right, Verdant Embrace has a choice node: Dream Simulacrum or Wings of Liberty. I am putting my bets that Wings of Liberty is better this season because hitting Verdant Embrace gets us an Essence Burst because of our tier set, and thus this is a lot of Essence Burst. However, Dream Simulacrum on Chrono Warden means bigger heal over times from your Primacy or from your reverberations. So like when you Verdant Embrace, you'll get a heal over time, and it's stronger with this, and it's a ranged spell rather than you dashing around. So this can be really useful. I'm going to say this is personal preference, but I think Wings of Liberty is going to math out to be better, especially for Flame Shaper. But feel free to play around with it. Also, remember, Wings of Liberty is the only way to do the cleave setup where you like Verdant Embrace, and then start healing yourself. Right, to get a whole bunch of extra healing on those two teammates. So your mileage will vary, of course, but that's how Wings of Liberty is looking in my brain, so I figured I'd tell you it here. Here's the thing with our Apex talents. You want it. It makes your Dream Breath stronger. It gives you Marithra's Blessing. Listen, it's sick. Don't get rid of this right now. If you get rid of these talent points, do it at your own risk, and note that you're probably cooking up something devious. There's a world, though, where I think you can get away with it, but I don't know how viable that is. And given how strong Marithra's Blessing is, I'm going to stick to the guaranteed Marithra's Blessings of rank 3, rather than getting rid of any points here. I've already mentioned it like a million times, so please excuse me. Our tier set. Our tier set's actually super fun this season. Consuming an Essence Burst sends forth a Living Flame at your target at 100% effectiveness, or a nearby injured target if they are full health. Note that when you Disintegrate, this will send one at your enemy. This is really funny. But yeah, when you're Echoing or Emerald Blossoming, you're going to be throwing genuine Living Flames at them. This is sick. It really makes your ramping process even stronger, and these don't consume your Echoes. It doesn't count as direct healing. Thus, it makes for a very powerful ramping process. So it makes your Echo turn into like a genuine spot heal if it's Essence Burst. This is huge. This is wonderful. I love it to pieces. I think you're going to like it too. The second part says that green spells are 5% better, like 5% more health, woo, and Verdant Embrace has a 100% chance to grant an Essence Burst. That second part is probably more important for the Flame Shaper side of things, and that first set's more important for everyone. But damn, it's a fun set. It's a good set. It works seamlessly with so many different builds. Yeah, this one's good. This one is really, really good. So get your tier set, excuse me. That's one of the most important things this season. And enjoy them to your heart's content. All right, welcome to the hero talent section. If you haven't been here for the whole video already, I've already talked a lot about the talents that interact with these things, but I'm going to go through every talent point first. Then I'm going to talk about how they play. I'm going to start with Chrono Warden because my beginner's build was Chrono Warden, and that's just because Chrono Warden is easier to learn, and anything that you learn in the Chrono Warden style will still apply to the Flame Shaper style. So I think that's important to know. As of recording this video, Flame Shaper is looking stronger in the metagame. However, I'm recording this during the PTR, right? As I've said a million times already, it might get nerfed, it might get bug fixed if it's bugged or something like that, right? You don't know what's going to happen. So while I am thinking Flame Shaper is better, and feel free to go for it, just keep that in mind as we go, that like there's a chance that Chrono Warden ends up stronger or things get nerfed, and I want you to know how to play. But we are going to start with Chrono Warden, then we'll get to Flame Shaper. All right, let's start by going through the talents. Chrono Flame, what makes Chrono Flame different from Living Flame is that follow-up damage. It's 15% of damage or healing done in the last 5 seconds, but it goes up to a maximum amount. And this talent here, Overclock, increases that amount. But like, it's only so much more healing, right? Chrono Flames are cool, they're more powerful, and there's another talent that makes them more powerful. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's cool, but it's not the real reason we're here. The real reason we're here is, I think, everything else. Here's where Warp is. I talked about that earlier in the beginner guide. This is a true blink instead of your hover being a dash. Just remember that. And it still maintains all the effects of hover. This is a super cool choice node. Temporality says that Warp reduces damage taken by 20%. Starts high and then it reduces over 3 seconds. Motes of acceleration. When you hit Warp, 3 motes are going to come out of you. If somebody picks them up in the next couple of seconds, it'll give them 20% increased move speed for 30 seconds. This is disgusting. Modes of acceleration is better all the time until a dungeon is lethal and you need temporality. So the moment something is murdering you, you go temporality. But this is just better all the time. Like, this gets your raid team around pretty quickly. And people see the bronze balls and they should either A, mistake them for augmentation balls and want to grab them, or B, they'll see them and know it makes them faster, and that just makes any caster happier when they do have to move. So I always recommend this one, but it is personal preference. I'll tell you about the die. Okay, double time is just better, I think, more often than not here, but you do need some crit chance. I would say 20% crit chance or more, like roughly 20% crit chance. Double time starts to really feel effective. When Dream Breath or Fire Breath critically strike, they extend their duration by up to 2 seconds up to a maximum of 12, just like Reversion does. Time Convergence, non-defensive abilities with a 45-second or longer cooldown grant 5% intellect for 15 seconds. You can extend the duration by using essence spells. It's niche. I think this is always good, but not better in most scenarios than Double Time. Like, one might argue maybe this is better in dungeons because the target count for Double Time isn't that high, but nah, I think Double Time has saved my buns more often than I've ever felt Time Convergence has. And to be fair, I haven't really done the math on Time Convergence in ages, but it wasn't pulling that much weight before. It's only 5% intellect, and while it's nice, it's nothing to write home about. But I'll say personal preference, leaning towards Double Time if you got some crit. That's my recommendation. Okay, Temporal Burst is what makes your tip the scales a ridiculous cooldown. We talked about this earlier. Increasing haste, movement speed, and cooldown recovery rate by 30%, decreasing 1% per second for 30 seconds. Disgusting. Temporal Anomaly, mana cost is reduced by 15%, and its cooldown is reduced by 4 seconds, which is rad. That means a lot more Temporal Anomalies, which with Nozdormu's teachings means even more Fire Breaths and Dream Breaths. Instability Matrix is fun. Each time you cast an empowered spell, Unstable Time Magic reduces its cooldown by up to 6 seconds, so it just randomly gets some off the top when you cast the spell. It's very lovely. Tip the Scales is a 1 minute and 30 instead of a 2 minute. Chrono Dynamo is new. Living Flame's cast time is reduced by 0.2 seconds, and it deals 50% increased damage or healing when it is a non-instant cast. So this is why you're kind of always better with your Living Flames as Chrono Warden. But also Life Spark gives you 100%, so it's still kind of worth grabbing Life Spark in some builds. But Chrono Dynamo is why your Living Flame is a reliable heal on Chrono Warden, less so on Flame Shaper. Here's where your Chrono Flames become stronger. Reverberations. This is why your Verdant Embrace is a heal over time. And no, it doesn't remove any healing. It just takes the healing you did and then creates a heal over time for 40% of the amount you did for 8 seconds. Very powerful. This does work through Echo, and that'll make this make more sense. Each healing over time effect from Verdant Embrace grants you up to 9% haste, 3% per application. So if you throw out a Temporal Anomaly and you Verdant Embrace people, you get 3, 6, or 9% flat haste, which is really, really nice, because while haste isn't our best stat, and I'll go over that later in the stat section, we're not saying no to free haste, because that's cooldown reduction off of a couple of our moves, and of course it's going to slightly decrease our cast time, so this is a rather nice buff. You don't have to worry about like always keeping it up or something like that, but it is powerful and it's good to use. Echo's 10% more effective. It's boring, but it's very useful. And then After Image. Empowered spells send up to 3 Chrono Flames to your targets. I would love to see this be 5 targets these days. Just letting you know, Blizzard. But damn, After Images feels good. So whenever you Fire Breath, you get up to 3 Chrono Flames that'll go find their targets and do damage. Dream Breath, 3 of them will go and find and heal people. A lot of the times when everyone's hurt, you're going to hit a Dream Breath, get a heal over time on everyone, and a few people will receive a small burst heal. And remember, these, just like your tier set, will not proc your echoes. So this is a lot of extra burst healing completely for free, so we love that. So how do you play Chrono Warden? What makes Chrono Warden so special? Well, Chrono Warden has a lot of cooldown reduction. It gets to cycle its cooldowns more often and make more out of the cooldowns that it already has. Things like your Verdant Embrace becoming a rather potent heal over time is really nice for topping people off and working within your combos. The extra haste, the always online Chrono Flames, and of course things like having an entire extra cooldown really make Chrono Warden shine. While it isn't stronger as of recording this video on the PTR, I still found a lot of success with it on the PTR. It's fast, it's buttery smooth, and I'll have to remind you guys at the stats section and for both Chrono Warden and Flameshaper, I was using some like garbage stats. Like I had max versatility, like super high versatility, and like nothing in my other stats. And Chrono Warden was still fast, smooth as butter, and got a lot of healing done. So I'm pretty confident that Chrono Warden players will be very happy regardless next season, even if, as of recording, Flameshaper's looking stronger. That being said, what makes Flameshaper so special? Alright, well, onto the Flameshaper side of the tree, Dream Breath and Fire Breath gain an additional charge. I'm going to go through some of the more boring ones first. Trailblazer, Hover, Deep Breath, and Dream Flight travel 40% faster. Hover travels 40% further. Awesome talent. Shape of Flame I've never used really, outside of testing. Tail Swipe and Wing Buffet scorch enemies and blind them with Ash, causing their next attack to miss within 4 seconds. I don't know. Unless there's like a tank buster from a mob that can be crowd control, and like, actually I don't know if this works on non-crowd controlled mobs. I'm almost positive it doesn't. It's just, it's niche, right? This might be a little bit better in PvP, where maybe you'll dodge a Mortal Strike or something like that, but for now, I'm going to recommend Trailblazer most of the time. Critical strike chance against targets above 50% health is increased by 10%. This is sort of a mini reverse execute for doing damage. You'll get more crit chance at the start of a fight, like a boss fight or on a bunch of enemies. However, it just means topping people off is a little more useful. It doesn't help you when people are actually in dire situations. And then Living Flame has 1 extra chance to trigger Essence Burst when it critically strikes. So remember how I said like Essence creates copies of spells? If you were to Living Flame 5 targets with your echoes, all of those Living Flames will individually roll their chance on an Essence Burst. Okay, well if you crit, it will roll the dice 1 more time. And I'm almost positive you can get 2 Essence Bursts from 1 critical Living Flame if you're extremely lucky. Fire Breath's cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds. Great. Fire Breath and Dream Breath reach their maximum power level 20% faster, which is great. It's always worthwhile. Fire Breath and Dream Breath last 4 and 6 seconds longer, respectively. This is great because there's another talent that's going to combine with this in a moment that I'll explain to you why this is so powerful. Enkindle seems like it's cool. Essence abilities are enhanced by Flame, dealing 20% of the healing or damage done as fire over 8 seconds. It makes your Blossom do a little bit more healing, your Disintegrate do a little more damage. It's nothing to write home about. Your Echo, it doesn't affect the healing from your Echoed spell. It affects the small healing on Echo. So it's a little useless on Echo. It's a little sad. Expanded Lungs. So this is the big one. Fire Breath's damage over time is increased by 30%, and Dream Breath's heal over time is increased by 20%. Given that you already heal with your Fire Breath, and it's a good amount on Chrono Warden, it's disgusting on Flameshaper. If you hit 2, 3, or all the way up to 5 targets with a Fire Breath, you're going to get a crazy amount of damage on those targets, and that's going to turn into a large amount of healing on your allies before you even factor in reversions and Dream Breaths or anything like that. Expanded Lungs is crazy strong. Fire Breath and Dream Breath deal their damage and healing 15% more often, meaning you get that healing over time from the damage and the healing from Dream Breath even faster and more frequently. This is a cool one. It's supposed to be on Life Cinders for the build you have down below, so try to grab this one. Life Cinder says that Obsidian Scales also applies to your target or one nearby injured ally at 50% value. This is great. You can just hand a defensive to someone. Super powerful stuff. Draconic Instincts is cute. Your wounds have a small chance to cauterize, healing you for 30% of the damage taken. Occurs more often on attacks that deal high damage. I don't know what the proc rate is on this. I don't have the number in front of me. I will say that in Raid, this can be useful for maintaining your mastery if you don't feel like there's anywhere you need to send your life cinders as like an external defensive. You know what I mean? Like external defensive or maintain your mastery a little bit more often. Yeah, so I feel like this one's only really good in Raid. I was testing it earlier, which is why I have it on this on this former Flameshaper page. You know the way it saves talents. This is a Chrono Warden build. It saved the last time it was a Flameshaper build. You know what I mean. Then finally, Dream Breath and Fire Breath, 50% chance to generate Essence Burst. Consuming an Essence Burst fires a twin flame. It's this little rainbow bouncing flame. It'll heal for an amount, and then it'll bounce 2 more times. Just kind of makes your ramping process a little bit faster, or your consume flame like blossom dumping nonsense also do a little bit of extra healing. It's nice, it's neat, it's cute, it's helping you out. Here's the big one. If you've played in the War Within, this has changed significantly. If you've been playing since midnight, you already know. Verdant Embrace consumes 4 seconds of Dream Breath from the allies it heals, detonating it and healing them for 240% of the amount consumed. Note that this detonates on that individual player. So if I consume Dream Breath off of you, my dear viewer, you will be the person to receive that healing from the consumed flame. No one else will, just you. If I have Dream Breath everyone in the party and got them all echoes, and then I Verdant Embrace, all of them will have 4 seconds removed off of their Dream Breath. Yes, this does work through Echo. That is a very awkward setup and not one you'll see too often. You'll usually like consume flame off of 2 or 3 targets from a cleave maybe every once in a while. However, it's the bottom half. Emerald Blossom and Fluttering Seedlings consume 2 seconds of Dream Breath from allies they heal, detonating it and healing for 240% of the amount consumed. So, let's say you want to play Flameshaper. How does that look? Let me tell you how it looks. You put a Fire Breath on as many enemies as possible. You Dream Breath or double Dream Breath your team with the Temporal Anomaly or some Echoes. And then when there is a major healing event, you want a Verdant Embrace to get some Essence Burst from your tier set and drop some Blossoms on the party. And any other ways you can get Essence Burst would be really useful, as they can let you continue to consume flame. This is stupid powerful. I'll have some gameplay on screen of me doing it in a boss fight. This is sort of the first time I was learning it. And this isn't probably even an optimal setup for it. I also am on the worst stats you've ever seen. This is not what I would expect you to be running in an actual dungeon. And yet, it was quite a significant amount of healing. Consume Flame is really powerful. Dropping Blossoms and Fluttering Seedlings and having them bounce around is incredibly powerful. That's likely what might get nerfed. Like if something got nerfed, I'm wondering, it's probably the Flameshaper Consume Flame. It's a little too powerful right now. That being said, if they let you keep it, it's really powerful. Also, this allows you to do things like you set up a double Dream Breath on your team and then, oh, one of your DPS took damage. Verdant Embrace them, consume some flame off of them. Boom, you're going to do more healing to them immediately. So it lets you play with the spec in a way that's like even more creative. And while I love that, and that's like the most fun part about Flameshaper and what you're going to love about it, I want to warn you, you can overcook. Okay, so in the most ridiculous scenario, you got double reversions, or you got reversions on everyone and a few double reversions down. You get a double Dream Breath on everyone. You somehow get an Echo on everyone in your party. Then you're going to Verdant Embrace to consume all of those Echoes and consume a bazillion flame on top of the grace period buffs, right? And you know what Inner Flame was running too, right? You pop Dream Flight or something, right? Like a crazy sounding setup. That took forever. You are still setting up and everyone's dead. It is possible to overcook and go too crazy with it and not actually get anything useful out of your heals. Less is more here, right? Oh, you have a Dream Breath on everyone? Get some Echoes down and consume some flame. Oh, maybe a double Dream Breath. Oh, that's good. Maybe a reversion or two here on your squishiest targets is a good idea for the next time you consume flame. Don't overthink it, right? Play more like you learned with the Chrono Warden beginner build and use the consume flame moments when they show up. A double Dream Breath into a whole bunch of consuming flame between your Verdant Embraces and your Blossoms and your Essence Burst is totally doable. But it's like, yeah, you will overcook and absolutely blow yourself up. You're going to be like sitting there and your whole team's dying and you'll be like, oh dear, I have no cooldowns left. And it's like, yep, we wasted them. Oops-a-daisies, and everyone's dead. So while I love Flameshaper and it's awesome how crazy this gets and how much fun it is to play, it's also like you will shoot yourself in the foot once or twice and go, that's the downside to this one. Or Chrono Warden, like, it's actually very hard to shoot yourself in the foot. You know what I mean? Like, you have so much CDR, it's easy to keep it running. I'm going to have some builds down below, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit if you want like my takes on them, but I don't know where the builds are going to go this season. So realistically, if you're really interested in one or the other and like what's most powerful, remember to use Warcraft logs and kind of see what people have been using, and you can check every few weeks as well to see if there's been any major shifts in the metagame and what people are running for their Chrono Warden or Flame Shaper builds. I know the section says full rotation, and you might be like, oh boy, I'm excited to learn the whole rotation. You've been baited. The beginner rotation really is the place to like learn the supposed rotation, because healers don't really have a set rotation. Instead, I'm going to give you some healing theory here to really think about how to heal, as there's some really nice tips to preservation, and I just want to get you in that mindset. So this is going to be a little more advanced, obviously, but if you're looking for like a proper rotation, go back to the beginner rotation. I want you to think about this. You have 5 players in your party, right? And there's a major damage event happening. Okay, first of all, you don't have to worry about your tank. You are like the best tank healer in the game, right? So if you do have to worry about your tank, you of all people will keep them alive. But most of the time, your tank is going to be chilling. Things that are meant to damage the whole party aren't also usually blowing up your tank. Usually your tank takes specific tank busters that are meant for them. And that's supposed to be like a you in the tank moment, rather than like a you and the whole team moment. So most AoE damage, it's 4 targets. It's you and the 3 DPS. Okay, well, you have time dilation. You can make 1 to 2 of those targets take their damage way slower, meaning that you have less people you have to worry about healing. So you can remove 1, maybe 2 people from the equation. I like time dilating myself, as we do receive bonus healing, and we always receive our mastery, so it's kind of easy to pick ourselves back up. Okay, that means there's 3 or 2 targets we actually have to worry about. Congratulations, you have reduced the amount of work you have to do. You can throw a temporal anomaly for those you care less about and put an echo on the 2 targets who really need it. Even with 0 essence bursts, you just did a much more effective job of healing a major damage event, because you didn't actually need to use all those resources. In fact, one could argue you could just put 2 echoes down, heal the players that really need the healing, and then throw the temporal anomaly and do some more healing on those who are starting to take damage from the time dilation or the time dilations that you just used. Try to reduce your target count. If everyone's going to take damage but you can defensive, that's 1 less target to worry about. If your tank only needs a little bit of healing, then you can ignore them. Let's say your tank needs a lot of healing. Well, you can always piggyback your tank's healing onto somebody else. If somebody else took damage, echo them, go heal your tank, and you did whatever you needed to the additional person who took damage. That's one of the most fun parts, is that if you want to really want to get into the deep side of this, reducing your target count for healing is one of the best ways to heal on Prez. However, there are a couple of other tips and tricks that I have for you in your full rotation to kind of help you out. One of which is, I like to call the double-double. I just like putting names on things. Don't overthink it. It's when you go echo, echo, reversion, reversion, right? And what this does is it gets 4 reversions rolling. Especially if you're running Life Spark, right? This is an incredibly strong way to make sure the grace periods are out, some heal over times are already started. You might even have an essence burst, right? And you can use all of that to go into the pull. So if you're going into the pull and this is already started, you're kind of ahead of the curve. No one should be dying in the first 3 seconds of the pull. You know what I mean? Like, it's either a misbehaving DPS or a bad tank, right? Or a really scary pull. And so you can start a dungeon by even like let's say we're running up to this enemy, right? I can like hover, walk towards everyone, temporal anomaly, and like get reversions out immediately, or dream breath, or whatever I want to start the party with. So don't feel bad about starting a pull well before it starts, because those resources will come back and then you'll simply be ahead of wherever you were going to be. Now, to add to the rotation section and some tips and tricks and positioning nonsense, let's go over temporal anomaly real quick. So this move's got a really big hitbox. I showed it off before, but I don't want to show it off again. If I aim right here, I think I hit everyone. Do you see how big that is? I hit almost everyone. I missed that unit. That's ridiculous, right? That is insane how big that is. Furthermore, it has a butt hitbox. I think I hit the targets behind me. Yes, I do. All of these targets just got an echo. So preservation wants to be behind its range targets if it's in like the world's most optimal situation, so that they can hit the whole melee stack and the range stack. However, if they're standing behind you, you'll still hit them. Dream Breath is a little bit smaller of a butt hitbox. However, if you position right and you cast Dream Breath, Look at that. I just hit all 3 of these targets with Dream Breath. So there is this giant butt hitbox around you. I would love a visualizer on that someday, Blizzard. I want to know how big that actually is. But yeah, if you can use your butt in your temporal anomalies butt to kind of get a little bit more range on people. But then let's go over the ultimate trick for positioning. This is the melee stack. Let's pretend this is just my tank, and I got 3 ranged in the back. This is one of the best positions in the world. You can aim at your ranged and hit them all. Let's say there's 1 melee DPS, 1 tank, and 2 ranged healers. Standing here, I can hit the ass hitbox on those other 2, and more importantly, the DPS. If I miss the tank, it's not a big deal. Throw the temporal anomaly through the team, and now I can hit everyone. Whenever you're in range, and or rather one of your range is out of range, you can rescue them, you can move them in. I talked about that earlier. Don't ever feel bad about rescuing people, okay? They got to position better around Prez. It's been a couple of years. Everyone should know Prez is limited range. They should be walking in a little bit. That being said, one person not being in your temporal anomaly is fine. You can almost always echo 1, and sometimes, if it's not too stressful, 2 targets that weren't in range. So if you're like, oh no, I can't hit everyone, just hit as many people as possible and echo the 2 that aren't in range of your temporal anomaly. It's almost always better to do it that way anyway. Also, it's more important that you can hit the range. So let's say my range are stacked up like this over here, and my tank is over here. I can very easily stand here and hit the range stack, and I can just echo the tank and, consider doing my damage from all the way over here. Find a way to line them up and hit them. Now, here's the social part that's a little hard. If somebody isn't moving in for you, tell them to move in, right? Move in's pretty understandable. If they don't speak your language, you can always hit them with the warning and then arrow ping yourself or something like that and kind of tell them hey, move in. I've had a lot of players who've understood that, even when there was a language barrier involved. Move in or die is the next step up. Move in or die is peak. That just gets people schmoving for you. That is so useful. You're going to love that you told someone to move in or die. It's not good to tell people that they're going to die, but it is when you're playing Prez and you need them to move. You can rescue them. If they have a neurotransmitter or a neuro... what's the item called? It prevents people from gripping you or from you rescuing someone. If they have that, right, tell them to move in. If they still refuse to move in, here's the harshest truth. They suck. That is a bad player or a belligerent player. You know what I mean? That person is being a problem intentionally. Maybe they're new and they don't remember and you have to keep reminding them. Most players will gladly move in for you, and some players, like Warlocks especially, love when you pick them up. They'll be like, oh, thank you. I couldn't position any better for you and I felt bad. Thank you for rescuing me. Everyone in this game could position better. I've seen so many DPS suck at positioning. They don't get any benefit from standing further away from the pack. There's no Cataclysm. Was it Cataclysm? No, it was Warlords of Draenor, right? Where BM Hunters, no, it was Marksman. Marksman Hunters got additional range and damage with their mastery. They don't get additional damage being further away from the targets anymore. That's just not how it works. Everyone can position better. If they're not positioning better and they will not cooperate, they suck. And if that causes the party to wipe, it's not your fault. Don't ever take responsibility for that. And I know that sounds a little cheeky and a little social gamey, but no, man, if they're playing competitive WoW content, high-end content, and they refuse to move in, that's like playing Overwatch and refusing to shoot someone on the enemy team because you're oh, well, I really like Kiriko, I don't want to shoot her. No, she's an enemy support, shoot her. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous to not act that way in a high-level content. Maybe in lower-level content it could be annoying, but you can probably adapt for those players. And the harshest thing to let you all know is I've seen a lot of Prez players mess up their positioning. Look, it takes a lot of time and effort. Make sure you're doing your best to position for your team and get the most healing done, right? If it's becoming a problem, you might need to ask your team to accommodate for you, and that's fine. But try to work on yourself first before you start yelling at other people, because I've seen some people who are I just can't play Prez because of the positioning problems. Dog, I've seen some of the way you people position. It's lazy. It's lazy, and you've never played support in League of Legends, and it shows. You're not using that bottom bush correctly. Look, all I'm saying is positioning was one of the most important parts about this spec, and I wanted to go over it in this very important section so that you knew all about it. Alright, Raiders, this section is for you. While the positioning stuff from the last section does matter, I want to talk a little bit about raiding. So, I'm not raiding this season, so I'm not going to have any builds for you or anything like that, except I can teach you how raiders do their ramp, sort of a basic version, so you can take this and apply it to your own raid teams. First of all, preservation can just do dungeon style healing across multiple targets and do that to do its smaller healing. So outside of major healing windows, you're just going to do exactly what you've been doing in dungeons to heal people up. Throwing out echoes, reversioning people who just took a lot of damage, doing damage when you got some free time getting some of your mana back, la da 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 da. The real big setup, there's two big setups, but it's called double temporal anomaly. Remember that an echo lasts on a target for somewhere in the 18-second time period. This means that for 18 seconds, you can get echoes out and prepare. Temporal Anomaly's cooldown is shorter than that. It's either 15 seconds or 10 seconds on Chrono Warden. This means that it's possible to do the following. So you can start by maybe echoing 1 or 2 people, right? And then throw a Temporal Anomaly. Then simply go do your damage for a little bit, right? See if you can get any Essence Bursts out of the target. If you do get a surprise Essence Burst, you can drop a few more echoes, but then once the next Temporal Anomaly is out, send it, and then slam whatever spell it was you wanted to use, and you will hit a massive amount of targets, at minimum 10 targets with your spells. The more large echoes you can get out, the better, especially if you're going to use something like Marithra's Blessing. However, this setup is really dynamic, and imagine you get a bunch of Dream Breaths on everyone, and then you start the Blossom spam of Consume Flame, right? That's going to be a lot of healing really quickly. So this is ultimately really fun and how raiding works on Prez, but there's one other final trick I have for you. You can do this at the start of dungeons too, but pop stasis before the pull begins and throw a temporal anomaly. Then simply wait. You're going to need a little bit of time to set this up, and you can set this up in the middle of a raid, but you're not healing for that entire duration, so make sure it's something your raid team is okay with. I now have 2 temporal anomalies in my stasis, but we're not done yet. Let's say the raid's about to start, right? And they do their countdown timer. And let's say that the first 5 seconds of the raid is the first major healing event, right? Great. Okay, good. If the healing event was further into the raid, you would delay what I'm about to tell you. So, as the timer is about to hit 0, or as the timer starts, I'm going to throw another temporal anomaly, right? That leaves it squarely within the realm of the damage that's going to be happening, and I'll get my cooldown back. As the damage hits, I might send out one more temporal anomaly, right? Then heal up all those targets. Then I can launch out 3 more temporal anomalies, or it could just be 4 temporal anomalies, right? Depending on what the damage looked like. And then I can heal it back up as quickly as I'll get out, right? I love the triple temporal anomaly setup because it can turn into quadruple and even sometimes quintuple temporal anomaly setups. And there's no way you have that many people to heal in a raid, right? Like, you're going to want some normal echoes at that point. But at the start of a raid, this is one of the most powerful setups that you can possibly get in the game. So you can coordinate with your healers that you might have the opening round of damage. Let's say the first round of damage is 30 seconds into the run. You're going to want to strictly just do damage at the start of the pull, not doing any healing until the first major damage event, where you can then go for, like, say, a quad setup. In which case you throw that temporal anomaly 10 to 15 seconds before that mechanic. Everyone's got an echo on them. Then it's time to unleash temporal anomaly, throw out all your other temporal anomalies, and get a whole lot done. It's awesome. It's fun. Happy raiding. I hope you have a good time. Like I said, I'm tanking this season, so I don't have any builds for you today. I hope you understand. Seeing as this video is already going to be 5 million years long, I'm going to go through my own personal builds rather quickly, and also I'm going to have some imports down below, but like, it's mostly that I hope you watched this section and saw what I was cooking, and I'll put a couple of the things that I'm running down below, but realistically they're meant to be for inspiration. Let's talk about it. First things first, I'm probably on most of my build. I'm in combat. First things first, I'm likely running Terror of the Sky. Not running Terror of the Skies, I'm running Unravel. Typically crowd control. I don't need extra crowd control in a pull more often than not, and I really like taking out Absorb Shields, but if there's not a lot of Absorb Shields this season, you'll see me back on Terror of the Skies. For Chrono Warden, I really like this setup. It's a good default setup, but I've been experimenting with my mana management, and I might run something along these lines, or I might get like a little freaky and do something like this. This seems really exciting to me. I might run something like this, especially given our Season 2 stats. We're going to have more secondary stats in general. I think this is something that I will personally run. I'm very excited about it. There's a lot of viability in how you can run Chrono Warden. Running out of mana is a bit of a problem, but like, if there's enough places to regenerate your mana, this isn't an issue. And it's as simple as doing something like this. If mana becomes a problem, just getting 1 point in this could be really nice. Or hey, running something like Titan's Gift and kind of running very lean. It's a little dangerous, but it might be fun. So I want to give you some ideas and some options. Chrono Warden's likely to be a little more off meta, so have fun with it, experiment with it, etc. On the Flame Shaper side of things, I have 2 things to show you. One is my Season 1 build. The reason is that the Season 1 build is probably pretty good still. I'd still run Wings of Liberty. Excuse me for my blemish here. But like, if you want to just fire breath a bunch of enemies, dream breath your allies, and play some normal ass preservation with Marithra's Blessing, and like smaller consume flame values, although you will still consume flame quite a lot on this build, this is good. This worked great for me. This was fun in Season 1, and everything got more powerful, basically, that I used in Season 1 in Season 2. So I think this is totally viable. That being said, if you're going to want to run Seedlings, I think it's going to look like this. Now, again, there's a chance you get rid of this for your Life Spark talent point, or you get rid of this for your Life Spark talent point. I don't know how people are going to run it, but I'm thinking it's going to look like this. Look, Fluttering Seedlings are actually doing quite a lot of extra healing when you also consider the fact that they will consume flame. If you have a double Dream Breath set up on someone, it will consume from both of those flames, as far as my testing has shown me. So that means that you can get a ton of healing done with this. The Fluttering Seedlings do a lot of work, especially if somebody has to run out of range for some reason. This will fly up to 40 yards away, and well, you gotta hope it's 40 yards in the direction of the person that is out of range. A lot of the times that will be the case. So I think this could be extremely viable. So if you're looking for something to try out, I think this is going to be pretty good. There's going to be some combination of spells down here. Like you might see this because we're good with just one Verdant Embrace giving us an Emerald Blossom. I don't know what people want to cook with this, but it's going to be some variation of this build. So I'll leave that to you. That being said, I'm most excited about my kind of freaky build, and I want to run it really badly, especially if they buff Chrono Warden a little bit, as Chrono Warden has been lacking just a little bit on the PTR, but I have a feeling it'll be fine. Also, make sure Bountiful Bloom is selected on the Flame Shaper builds, as like you want to heal up to 5 targets. Emerald Blossom heals more than Fluttering Seedlings, so like Fluttering Seedlings being bonus healing is good. Fluttering Seedlings being the only healing from Emerald Blossom is more of a like unfortunate circumstance that is good. So we still want Bountiful Bloom on Flame Shaper, I think, most of the time. I don't think there's an interaction where you want to purposely miss your blossoms to get more Fluttering Seedlings. Like, I don't think that's actually ever better, but if it is ever better, somebody tell me. Because I haven't experimented with that, because I would need to be in comms with people and I have to pug on the PTR, so you know how it goes. That being said, let's move into the stats section. I'm about to make a video all about gearing. Gearing in WoW has really changed since like classic days, and there's a lot of people who still do what's called BIS lists, and I want to really talk about that and our stats today. So before I dive into the stats, a best in slot list or a BIS list is usually a list that somebody concocted using sims, right, and like running the numbers to see how much damage or how much healing they can get out of a situation and what would be the best for us. And then they select what pieces of gear would best get them those values, and then bada bing bada boom, you have a best in slot list. The problem is that they're relatively misleading in that they're usually designed for one piece of content. If the sim isn't accurate, the best in slot list isn't accurate. It can make you chase down really weird items that don't look good on paper for your spec, but are good when you account for all the other items. And it can really throw players for a loop. If you are playing at a high level, like Race to World First, somebody is already doing the math on what they think is the best for you and has already selected your loot. So it doesn't really matter. Second of all, if you're playing in a mythic guild that loves to hit like Hall of Fame, top 100, top 200 kind of stuff, right? Then your raid team is probably going to come up with an idea of what you want, and you're going to select the kinds of things that you're looking for. But realistically, you're chasing down stat weights. You're chasing down what combination of secondary stats and main stat is the strongest for you. And you can get away with murder, especially on healers, but in most specs, because all you need are things that hit your stat weights. So a best in slot list might not take the best ring possible for you, because it's the best possible ring in that best in slot list, given all the other pieces of gear. When you're gearing in a normal raid team, or even like a mythic raid team that's like not a Race to World First guild, right? You're genuinely trying to find the pieces of gear that give you the weights you're looking for. And if you go after some weirdo ring without all the other pieces, you're not going to be doing more damage until you get all the other weirdo pieces. And then like a month from now, someone's going to be like, oh yeah, that was out of date. It's actually this now. And you got to go redo half your gear. I don't want you doing that. You can clear most content and even get significantly good parses on most DPS content with good enough gear. And on healers, we're not worried about parses because that's a fake statistic. I have a whole video on that if you want to hear me rant about heal parsing being absolutely not the most helpful information in the world. But for us, we just need to be able to heal people effectively. And it's better to know how your secondary stats work rather than you just chase down what someone on the internet told you to use. In the PTR, you get scaled to content, which is why I have some Season 1 and some Season 2 gear on, because, well, you scale to content. So it's always going to give me upgraded versions of whatever I'm wearing, which means that I have effects on here that I might not actually have when I'm fully geared. I'm not going to recommend any of the things that I'm wearing to you. Instead, I'm going to explain to you what these secondary stats do and why they're so important. The most important piece of gear you can get in a season is your tier set. Look, all the slots are good. You might prefer one slot over another one. Like this one gives versatility and haste. So like maybe you don't need the headpiece this season, sure. But if you get 4-piece and it involves the headpiece, you're taking the damn headpiece because 4 set is better than no set. 2 set and 4 set are going to be better every single time. Even if it's a veteran piece of gear, by the way, you're going to want to have your 4 set bonus or your 2 set bonus rather than like, oh, I have a hero helmet, but it's not a tier set piece. Doesn't matter. Until you catalyze it or until you get a better piece of tier, you're holding on to 4 and 2 and 4 pieces of tier because that's just that important. So keep that in mind. When it comes to playing with your stats, trinkets are interesting. You have to sim them, you have to test them to see how good they are. And sometimes like there's a lot that's okay, or maybe Mythic Plus doesn't have good trinkets and you're just taking something. Like I take Vessel of Tortured Souls in Season 1 because it gave me mastery. It gave me a little bit of extra mastery. I loved having the little bit of extra mastery. And if I got extra intellect from those little dropped souls, that was great. But if I didn't get them, whatever, fam, it was fine, right? Trinkets, though, when you sim them, you can test them and see how good they are. When you're testing them or seeing how other people think, like, oh, this is the best trinket for healers. Hey, it might actually be the best trinket for healers. So feel free to go for things like that. Trinkets are usually weird. And also, while main stat is one of your most important stats, if your trinket ever has a secondary stat and like you lose main stat, like, oh, this only gives me main stat if I pick up the little souls, that's fine. Don't worry about that in your overall calculations for what's the best for you. Trinkets are to be rated differently, as is jewelry. Jewelry is really powerful. It gives you the most amount of secondary stats out of any piece of gear, and it gives you a boatload of stamina, but no main stat. This means that you might find out that there's a ring in champion that you have that gives you everything you ever wanted, and you have a mythic track ring that is not what you wanted, and the mythic track ring is probably not better than the champion ring with the correct stats. So jewelry is a little fickle, but also preservation and healers in general are really open-ended with their stats. They can get away with the most amount of murder here and having the wrong stat weights. And so Prez especially gets real freaky. So you can really mix and match the gear. If you're coming in from AUG or Dev and you're like, oh God, like I'm worried about my haste. Like I have way too much haste. Don't worry about it. It's okay. You can still make it work. It's not your best stat, but it's not harming you. So now that we got all that out of the way, intellect's the most important, right? Other than our trinket slots, I'm almost always going for higher intellect. I won't replace a tier set unless it's a better piece of tier, right? But other than that little rule, yeah, intellect. If it goes up, I go up. Intellect is almost always worth it on preservation and on most healers in general, so I always try to amp this one up as high as it can go. When it comes to the secondary stats, mastery is the most bang for the buck healing. I have way too low mastery. In fact, my stats are wrong, and I'll explain how well it worked in a minute so that you can understand the values better. But mastery, it's the most bang for the buck, right? More mastery is always good on preservation. It always gives you more healing. You are never saying no to more mastery. Now, you want other stats to go alongside your mastery to really boost it up. On its own, it's good, but if it's not activated, it's not doing anything. So it's good to have other stats as backup plans. And of course, having your mastery boosted by good crit or good versatility will simply just get you even more healing. So when you're getting extra stats, it's not like it's a detriment to have other stats. In dungeons, I don't tend to run the highest mastery level possible. I tend to run an okay amount. You can have like even stats down the board in dungeon and you'll be thrilled. Critical strike is amazing for preservation because not only do we have some critical strike modifiers, we deal with big numbers, and big numbers doubled our bigger numbers. And so we like crit chance. Having a very high amount of crit is almost always useful, but you do need to have something backing it. So if you're high crit, high haste, while that will get the job done, the haste is really holding you back there and not really backing up the crit in a meaningful way. If you're running high crit, high verse with an okay amount of mastery, that crit would pull a ton of weight for you, and so would the versatility. Versatility is the PvP stat. It increases your damage and healing done by the percentage amount. So in this case, I do 23.65% more damage into healing. I also take reduced damage by half of that value, so 11.82. Versatility on its own is only so good, and as you can see, I'm running an absolute ton of it. It is good. It's not a bad stat. It's really, really, really strong. But it really needs something else backing it on preservation, as versatility alone isn't going to give you the craziest values. Mastery will give you more values than verse will. However, whenever your mastery doesn't activate, your verse is doing all the heavy lifting alongside your crit. Which is why, for me, I always like running a good amount of verse, as it keeps me safer, activates my mastery more often, and it backs up my other stats exceedingly well. You can run like a high verse, high mastery build, and you will hit some really consistent, really high numbers. It feels pretty good. But I'm going to recommend for Mythic Plus, you're going to run a good amount of crit and mastery and verse, and they can lean in any direction. You want slightly more crit, go for it. You want to lean more into the mastery side of things because you have a raid build, go for it. There's no wrong answer here. It's just when you get to the highest levels of play, you might need to swap certain pieces of gear out to get a little more throughput if you say you need more mastery, or you need more crit chance to be more likely to keep people alive during a heavy healing situation. Now, haste. Why is haste not that good on Prez? Every healer likes haste, right? Well, it reduces your spell cast times, except our cast times are long even with high haste. Like, it's not pretty. So, oh, you have a 1.8 cast time and now it's a 1.4. Yeah, that is an increase in HPS, but it's not usually more healing than you would have gotten out of, say, those points split evenly among crit and mastery. And that's sort of the thing. You also have this sort of factor to Prez where you snap your fingers. So I throw out a temporal anomaly, I echo someone right, and then I'm doing damage, I'm chilling right, and then, hey, it's time to heal. I press a button and I healed. That doesn't require haste, that requires reaction time, right? Oh, I see the damage. I triage, I heal, everyone gets healed, I start my next combo. Going faster there, while it can be an HPS increase, isn't mandatory, and a lot of the times you are waiting for the next major setup to be done for you to snap your fingers and heal again, and thus haste doesn't get you a whole lot. Now, haste sometimes reduces cooldowns, like say Verdant Embrace has green text up there. That means that it is haste reduced, temporal anomaly, and reversion, and that's it. That's all your hasted cooldowns, and they don't get hasted by that much. You're not reducing their cooldown by a significant amount, so it really doesn't feel like it goes very far. Now, some raiders like to run a good amount of mastery or a good amount of haste because with the innate magic talent giving you 10% faster essence regeneration plus haste boosting your essence regeneration, you can get an extra echo or two out in your ramp sequence, and that can be a godsend. So like, I understand it from that angle, but in dungeons, it rarely gets you more, and you're just going to get an essence burst anyway most of the time, you know what I mean? Or you're going to be full on essence because you had nothing to do for a moment. I don't think you really need the haste, but if you're coming from Augur Dev and you're like, oh god, I have a ton of crit and haste, I've played it, I've used that build before, it's fine. I've run high haste builds before, they're fine, they're fun, they're even enjoyable, but I almost always find that I get more value out of running a little bit slower with my other stats cranked up. And this has been the case since I started Prez, like since Dragonflight Season 1. I have witnessed this phenomena forever now, so I'm going to stick to my guns on that one. But if you're like, Bowser, I disagree. I want to run Giga High Haste Versatility. Girly Pop, do it. I want to see your runs. I want to see how you blast, because realistically, you're probably going to get it done. You're probably still going to clear most content in the game, even with the wrong stat weights here. So have fun with it, right? Just be wary of the best list, the best in slot list, as I think it is the most misleading. Instead, go look to see what other healers and players are saying about the trinkets, right? Or any unique items that might like help you. Yeah, those are usually the ones to look at. Those are usually the ones that'll get you the most value. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to be 100% with all of you. It has been a very, very, very tough like month and a half for me, like absolutely brutal, a little soul crushing. It's been very hard, but the support has been incredible. We're partnered on Twitch. You know, I got some great friends looking out for me, and my Twitch chat has been so kind to me as well. And so is my comment section here on YouTube. So thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you're going to BlizzCon, I'll post on social medias what my badge looks like. I'm easy to find. I have a massive head of hair. I'm 6'2", I'm large, and I use a cane to walk. So you'll see my Bowser the Healer tag, and you'll be like, oh, I bet that's them. It's me. I promise you. Come and say hi. I'd love to get photos. I'd love to say hello to all of you. And that's going to do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. And hey, I'll see you in the next one. Take care, friends.